Hello, everybody. I'd like to call this TTC board meeting to order. The clerk has confirmed that quorum is present, and she will now read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Chair. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Thank you, Commissioners. Do any of you wish to declare a conflict of interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, we'll move on. The next item is the approval of the meeting minutes of June 12th. Can I please have a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Mantis. All those in favor, by show of hands, thank you. I would like to remind you that this is an open meeting. As we go through the agenda today, those of you participating remotely will be required to submit requests to questions to ask questions and to speak on items to the clerk. Each member has 5 minutes for questions and to speak. If you wish to submit a motion on an item, please email your motion to the email address that you have been provided with. I will now commence with a review of the order paper. Item number 1, the CEO's report for July. I will hold this item. Mr. Leary will be doing a presentation. Number 2, the approved minutes of the Advisory Committee on Accessible Transit. I will hold this item. Vice Chair Tanny will be making a presentation. Item number 3, the CEO's 22 annual performance evaluation. I will hold this item for consideration in camera. Item number 4, Wheel-Trans Transformation Program 2023 update. We have speakers and a presentation, so guess what? I will hold this item. 2023 Accessibility Plan Status Update, speakers as well, holding that. Number 6, the SAP Program, Contract Award for Transit Operations, Workforce Management Solution and Implementation Services. Can I have a motion to adopt this item? Thank you, Commissioner Holiday. All those in favor? Thank you, carried. Ward Station Bus Terminal Replacement is item number 7, Delegation of Authority. Can I have a motion to adopt this item? Commissioner Moyes, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Install new uninterruptible power supply, UPS, and distribution system at Inglis Building, Delegation of Authority. Can I have a motion to adopt this item? Commissioner Osborne, thank you. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. That's item number 8. Pardon me. Item number 9, procurement authorization for Bloor Young capacity improvements, early works, utility works. I can have a motion to adopt this item. Commissioner Jagdale, thank you. All those in favor? Looks like it's going to carry. Procurement authorization for St. Clair Station streetcar offloading platform utility relocation. Can I have a motion to adopt this item? Thank you. All those in favor? Carried. That was item number 10. We're halfway there. As a joke, no one got it. Now, item number 11, St. Clair West Loop replacement. Can I have a motion to adopt this item? Commissioner Moyes, thank you very much. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Spadina Station escalator modernization. Can I have a motion to adopt this item? Oh, we'll hold that in your name. Sure, absolutely. Just make a note of that. Procurement authorization is number 13, supply of Cummins factory remanufactured engines. Can I have a motion to adopt this item? Commissioner Jagdale, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Procurement authorization for TTC uniform and work clothing. Can I have a motion to adopt this item? Commissioner Osborne, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Item number 15, which is the last item. Procurement authorization for TTC all-risk property insurance renewal. Thank you very much. Deputy Chair, all those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Okay. Thank you. That concludes the review of the order paper. And as we know, the first item of business always is the CEO's report. And with that, I'll invite Mr. Rick Leary to address the board.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I'll also say welcome to our YouTube viewers and today's participants to the board's 7th meeting of the year and the final one before we go into the summer break. Let me begin by saying that it was a wonderful event this morning here at City Hall with our new Mayor Olivia Chow officially taking office. It was a really enjoyable and touching event. So on behalf of the TTC, I want to extend congratulations to Mayor Chow and wish her the best of luck and success in her term in office. I'd also let you know that I did have the opportunity to speak with the mayor right following the election, and it was a good opportunity had the ability and committed to providing her office with full support as her administration begins their work. So it went very well. I'd also like to congratulate Commissioners Jagdeo and Osborne, again, who were recently appointed to the board for a new term to 2020, ending in 2027. So welcome back, Commissioners. Thank you for that. On a sad note, though, I have to let you know that today we're lowering flags across the TTC in honor of a former councilor and TTC Vice Chair, Bev Salmon, who passed away on July 6th at the age of 92. Ms. Salmon was Toronto's first Black female city councilor, and she served on the TTC Board from 1989 to 1994 and as vice chair from 91 to 94. So our thoughts go out to the Salmon family. Now, Commissioners, I'm pleased on another note, so let me draw your attention to what we have in front of me here today is the trophy on display. This is the CIMA Mayor's Trophy, and it was awarded to our very own cricket team, the Red Rockets. Very proud. And the TTC was crowned champion after beating our friends at Toronto Police Services at this year's cricket tournament at Sunnybrook Park on June 24th. My understanding is the police had won 3 years in a row. So this was a great event. So I'd also like to congratulate the manager, Mohsin Patel, our captain, who is Roy Lalkasoon, Vice Captain Abdul Chandri, and the whole squad for an outstanding job. So I'm very proud of them, and it's a great picture up on the screen. I'd also say that we at the TCC, we're thrilled to recognize some of our top employees at our Spring Rewards and Recognition event recently. And this is the organization's opportunity to thank workers for their dedication and commitment. Many of these individuals are real-life heroes, I would tell you. So I want to highlight a few of them, and we have a couple of them, 3 of them here today. A few incidences and a few people here today, I will say. So if you look at the next slide, this is transit control dispatcher Louise Godolera and bus operator Samantha Hefner. Okay, do we got the slides up?
Sorry,
Just pause for a second as we lost audio? Okay, so everything's on hold.
Test, test, test. Okay, go ahead.
There we go, so they're up on the slide. Thank you very much for that. So I want to let you know, Louise and Samantha worked together to assist a customer in medical distress. Louise took a call from the control center regarding a customer that required medical assistance. She promptly called emergency services and relayed their verbal instructions to Samantha. And without hesitation, Samantha performed critical first aid. So thank the 2 of them. The next picture that we have, and I'm going to be asking people to come up shortly for a picture, so if we can go to the next slide, please. This is bus operator Robert Sorrenti. While driving his bus, Robert spotted a young autistic child on the curb outside of a daycare center. Concerned for the child's safety, Robert stopped the bus and to observe. In the blink of an eye, the child darted out in front of oncoming traffic. Robert immediately ran out of the bus and risked his own life to keep the child safe and out of harm's way. So we thank Robert as well. The next picture that we have to put up, this is bus operator Moganaraj Rajathurmai. Moganaraj was on his route in Scarborough this past winter when he saw a car stuck in snow on a railway crossing. So you can see where this is going. Knowing this was around the time a train would be passing, he immediately went over to the car and to check on the occupants. He advised the people in the car to get out before the train came. 2 of the occupants were elders and required help. He got all 4 people to his bus to keep them warm and safe just moments before the train hit his vehicle. So his efforts really did ensure that everyone survived that ordeal. Commissioners, these are just a few examples of the incredible work that we know happens daily with TTC employees. Their work and that of many others in areas of outstanding customer service, safety, teamwork, leadership, diversity, and innovation and creativity were recognized at our event. So I'm going to ask if you can please join me in applauding these individuals and all of our awards and recognition winners for going above and beyond their daily duties. Thank you. I'm going to ask, we'll get up and take a picture. We ask the councilors to take a picture.
Thank you. Hey, what's up, Dr. Scott?
Oh, great, thank you. You know, when we're speaking of safety, I'd like to make you aware of a bus design innovation project that's underway here at the TTC. And one of our goals, as you're aware, is to improve operator and customer safety. Now, the program was presented to the Federal Transit Administration in Washington, D.C. in June, as well as the ATU International Conference in the fall of 2022. Now, this program has opened the door for us to work with other transit agencies across North America and achieve these important goals industry-wide. Now, it's really exciting for me when we have full collaboration. As you saw, the president was up with us in a picture, the collaboration with union and management working together at the TTC. I think those partnerships produce much better results as we work together to protect our employees and our customers. Now, Ben Case, the Executive Director of Innovation and Sustainability Program, and Andrew Filatico, the Health and Safety Representative for ATU Local 113, have been working together to move this project forward. But unfortunately, Ben couldn't be here today, so I've asked Rich Wong, our Chief Transportation and Vehicles Officer, as well as Andrew, as I said, the representative of ATU, to give you a brief presentation on this initiative. So I'll pass it over to you two gentlemen.
Thank you. Through the chair, good afternoon to the board and to everyone in attendance to this meeting today. I'm here on behalf of the Innovation and Sustainability Group to help present some information on this program. The Bus Design Innovation Program was developed in partnership with the ATU 113 and Centennial College. As Rick mentioned, my co-presenter here today is Andrew Filatico. Andrew is an executive board member for 113. He is also the safety representative for the union. And he has been a big advocate for improved vehicle design to promote health and safety for both our customers and our operators. The Bus Design Innovation Program explores opportunities for new designs with the goal of developing a safer and more environmentally friendly vehicle, while also improving the operator and customer experience. Health and safety is always at the forefront and is a big focus of our vehicles group when it comes to vehicle designs. And through the COVID pandemic, some of the work that we were working on was accelerated to address, the concerns with the pandemic. It has also gained a lot of attention in the industry. As Rick mentioned, other agencies in North America have been reaching out to us to find out what we're doing, as we are leading the way on this front. And on June 22nd, 2023, we recently presented to the U.S. Federal Transportation Administration on some of our initiatives on this program. Next slide, please. Sorry, it should be the next 2 slides. Next one. So Andrew's really going to give some details on the program, but at a very high level, some of the objectives of this program is to reduce collisions, improve emissions, improve some ergonomics, accessibility, and customer experience, and most notably with recent trends, preventing assaults and illnesses on the vehicles. So at this point in time, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew to give you some more details on some of the program initiatives in this program. So over to you, Andrew.
Great, thanks, Rich, and good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the invitation for being here. I look forward to giving you some highlights on the Bus Design Innovation Program, some of the benefits that we are looking at to create a better global standard. We are looking at greatly improving vision, removing the blind spots from buses for increased safety of our pedestrians. Moving forward, something that's a very large concern for all of us is improve operator security to have a proper, complete barrier for reduced assaults. There are statistics that have been put out by the Federal Transit Administration based on what's going on in our industry. And in the last 10 years, assaults have gone up 400%, and that's indicative of North America. We want to complement the Design Innovation Program with having a proper respiratory hazard protection. This will include positive pressure isolation. This complements the barrier through proper HVAC. Given the fact that we've gone through situations in the last 12 years, starting with SARS, going to COVID, if the trend continues, we will probably move into another pandemic in the next 5 or 7 years. So we want to make a point of having proper workstation that protects our operators, but also protects our patrons, and be in a place where we're going to provide excellent transit service to the people of Toronto, and also lead in global standards to help North America. Moving forward, we're looking at superior ergonomics for the reduction of excessive musculoskeletal injury rates. When we take a look at studies, and by the way, I just want to make a point here, everything that I'm pointing out is supported by a study, and many studies to promote this process. The ergonomics that we need to be looking at makes for a proper workstation for operators. Our operators need and deserve to be in a proper workstation that's going to lower vibrations that will lead to gradual onset injuries, to lower lumbar 1, 2, and 3 in their backs, neck injuries, wrist injuries, and so on. Once again, the technology's out there. We've done our research, and we can put this together. Also, we're looking at the latest camera technology to create an undistorted 360-degree view, so our operators have the opportunity to see what's going on around a bus, which then also helps to prevent from incident-occurrent accidents based on pedestrians being close to the bus or those who are riding bikes. Next slide, please. Next slide, thank you. So in this slide here, what you're going to see on the left-hand side is some of the current Toronto Transit Commission buses, what their barrier design currently looks like. However, on the right-hand side are the latest developments of a prototype, which I'm very happy to say has been circulating throughout the Commission through a roadshow, and we do have surveys to support this through the Joint Health and Safety Committees. This latest development allows for proper supplemental panels, as you can see, that go directly to the windshield over and above the operator, and the design of this barrier is much more superior based on vibration and strength and so on But I just want to make a point here, this particular barrier not only will protect from aggravated assaults, but is designed for positive airflow pressure so that we can reduce viral transmission. And at this time, I'm going to pass the next slide over to Rich. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So just to close out, the Bus Design Innovation Program is not only to help health and safety of our vehicle designs for customers and operators, but the program has allowed TTC to work collaboratively with the union and with Centennial College on this positive, on making a positive difference to our vehicle designs. In many ways, the work that is being done by Andrew, the TTC staff, and Centennial College students are leading the way for the industry by influencing future bus designs. While it's great to see everybody's collaborating on this positive project, it's also great to see a new generation of students who are interested in transit get involved with research and development of some of these designs. So it's a very positive program. And just some last words, and I'd just like to say thank you to Andrew, 113, and Centennial College for all their help and efforts on these initiatives, because it's a great program, and I think we're going to be making a difference for vehicle designs of the future. So that's the end of our presentation, and Andrew and I are here for any questions if you have them.
We'll take questions while they're sitting here, as I see a counselor's looking.
Yeah, questions, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm really intrigued about the 360-degree view. And I think as our urban environment and our roads become more congested and more complicated with more people, that sounds really exciting because the operator can see so much more. But I think of the example I have at home. I've got a newer minivan, and we're really lucky. We have one of those digital rear view mirrors that I kind of hated at first, but after a while, I really started to like it because I realized, because it zooms in and out, you actually get a superior view. But the one thing that I did learn about it is that if it doesn't work, there's redundancy. You can flip it and you can still use it as a traditional mirror. It's not as good. And I just wondered if you have redundancy built into this, if we still have or will have traditional mirrors on vehicles. Because I just worry about us getting into that age where we rely on all these sensors and cameras and so on, and we forget as operators of vehicles and in being in charge of safety, and I'm speaking to myself as driving a minivan at home with kids in it, you know, we start to rely too much on the technology and we forget about the old-fashioned things that we still need to do. And I don't discourage continuing down that technology path, but do you have some redundancy built into that?
Yeah, great question. Thank you very much. I just want to make a point here that the camera systems are going to be a positive addition based on protecting our pedestrians and giving the operators more tools and the opportunity to do their job effectively. Based on moving with the design concept, there could be a two-tier approach to this, is one having the cameras with the mirrors and one just having the cameras on their own. And I just want to make a point here that we're looking at everything based on doing studies and looking at what the best practices are. So it's a very good question, and we're taking everything in consideration based on using every available technology, including the old and the new, if it's blended. If it is, if it's not, then we'll see where we're going. As you know, technology changes rapidly. I'm sure in the next 2 or 3 years, things are just going to be where they need to be. But very good question, and yeah, so let the studies speak for themselves. And we won't put, our whole objective here is to look at any gaps to mitigate risk. And so we'll take that in consideration. Thank you for bringing that up. And that question in itself is indicative of the fact that we can protect the people of Toronto, the pedestrians, and of course, lead globally. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you. Commissioner Moyes, I believe you had a question.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Technology, I'm very supportive of, obviously. And I know you're talking about the 360 view, which is great and important. But what about things like automatic braking. Like if a bus approaches a vehicle too closely, and it automatically brakes because, maybe the driver got distracted or something like that. I know a lot of cars have that now. And what about, I know some of the technology in vehicles now that it allows you to stay within the lane, right, if you're drifting off, right? So are you looking at it in a holistic way, or just this one 360 view that you've talked about here?
Yeah, so I can take that question. So thanks for using and referring to the term as being holistic, which means looking at everything in a cooperative manner to best serve the safety of the public and assisting the driver. Once again, I'm going to answer this question based on we're going to look at every available possible technology and use it in a means that we can study it to say what will be best and what will be most effective. I know that answer is a little open-ended, but the reality is we need to start looking at what technologies are there to be able to be used to see if it'll actually work. As we have experienced in the past, some technologies don't really work effectively, so we need to be cognizant of that. But with the design project, we will take that step by step. Thank you for the question.
One final follow-up. Do you have any, have you looked at other jurisdictions, perhaps across or borders, perhaps, or within it, to see what best practices are currently in place?
Yes, very good question. So a lot of the best practices, believe it or not, are in Europe. So especially in France, Paris, even in London. And if I can refer that question back to some of the design concepts based on the barrier systems that they're using in Europe, which allow no impedance whatsoever of the open or closed side of the mirrors. And they also have minimized aggravated assault. Very simple changes, but the question's great. We have looked at various areas, and I will tell you right now, and I say this, Europe sort of kind of leads in this, but I think with the team that we have here, we can take whatever is out there and expand on that and make that exponential. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Jagdale.
Thank you, Chair Burnside. Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. I'm always excited by anything related to innovation and pushing the envelope of what we can do here at the TTC. In particular, I wanted to dive a bit deeper into some of the partnerships you're going to have with some of the educational institutes that you showed on the board. Obviously, labor, very important issue, especially as we think about our workforce moving forward and our economy moving towards quaternary industries. So getting people excited about transit is great for us, right? We're amongst the biggest employers in the city. Could you talk to some of the more tangible ways in which we're going to be interacting with students or with faculty at these institutions to help drive the innovation agenda?
Yeah, great. Excellent question. Thank you for bringing that up because it sort of highlights the apprenticeship program at Centennial College. And I just as a note here, I'm an alumni of Centennial College. My background is I'm an automotive technician, and I give a lot of thanks to that program back. I'm showing my age now, but it was the late 70s when I became licensed. So we're giving back, and we have a great apprenticeship program with the Toronto Transit Commission. We got great union labor workforce that are very skilled. And I just want to make a note here, just to bring into this question here. I think we need to really take a strong look at the resources that we have here, the Toronto Transit Commission. We have skilled labor union force. We have engineers. We have facilities. Please, if anybody has not seen the facilities, please go down to Duncan and Harvey Shop. We certainly lead the way. And, when we take a look at the bus design innovation program, this is not something that says, oh, this would be great to do. We already have a proper foundation in place to make this happen. And I honestly believe that we have an opportunity to showcase Toronto, the Toronto Transit Commission, the A2 Local 113, and all the other affiliates, Centennial College, the International Learning Center in Washington, who happens to be one of the partners, the ATU International, who worked with the FTA to create the design concepts and push this forward. This is the team, this is the collaborative. So it's becoming international. And what we have here is an opportunity to make a difference. Now, I'm going to get a little impassioned here. Everybody has a motive. My motive is to save lives. I have unfortunately been to funerals for the victims' parents who've had children who've been killed by buses okay? Left-hand turns, blind spots. We need to take a very hard look at what we can do here to create a better place for our people in Toronto. Our pedestrians, our patrons can have a better experience through transit, through these design innovations. One of the concepts we were looking at is vertical airflow, similar to what we have in an airplane, so that you have airflow coming from the ceiling to the floor, and its own separate HVAC system with filtration. Now think about that during the pandemic. The way buses are designed right now, there's a negative airflow pressure that comes from the back to the front, which means our operators are now subjected to all the viral transmission. Well, that's a little backwards. I mean, it means good. It's a good design, I guess, for what it looked like on paper, but the reality is we need to keep our operators healthy. They deserve a good workstation. We need to have our patrons feel comfortable and safe. That's going to help us down the road and bring our ridership up where it needs to be. And in the event that we move into another pandemic, our ridership needs to know, I can take the bus with these new innovations and feel safe. And the reality is, friends, all of you have an opportunity to make a difference, to make Toronto the leaders in global standards and help the industry. And it's about helping everybody. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
So just to add up to that, we're in partnership with the colleges, with the apprenticeship program. We've started up the rail apprenticeship program as well, so we're the leaders in that industry. We're the first to start up apprenticeship for that type of vehicle. And we're also partnered with TDSB to draw in students from the high school levels into the skilled trades with focus on diversity and inclusion. So we're really making a big push to include kids from all demographics, including, there's, at the moment, we have a low representation of females in the skilled trades, so we're really promoting that as well. So just to close out that question for you, Councillor.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner De Laurentiis.
Thank you. I commend you on the apprenticeship program. And just a quick question. So should we understand that to mean that you actually have embedded in the program a period of time when the students are coming and working in the system? So they're learning the theory sitting in the classroom, and they're actually doing the practice. So it's a true apprenticeship structure?
It's a true apprenticeship. It's 3.5 years long. Half of it is classroom and half of it is working alongside a licensed technician and getting their sign off for the different types of jobs that they will be working on and need for the examination at the end of their curriculum.
Great. Well, I encourage you, let's all really celebrate that program and get it out there, because it's the best learning. I think it's been proven that it's the best learning structure you can have, where you've got, a bit of you mix the theory and the practice. So very good. It also gives, the opportunity to the talented members, the operators, gives them the opportunity to pass on their learning and their experience. So well done.
Thank you. Any speakers? Back to Rick.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, thank you very much, Rich and Andrew. Andrew, I love your passion. This has been a lot of fun working together with you. I also want to thank the president of the union, ATU, Marvin Alford, for the collaboration and partnership that we have on this. It's good relationships. It's nice to see, so thank you again. Now, I'm gonna we got a few more here as well, just to let everybody know. Speaking of innovation and creativity, I'm very proud to introduce you to a special group of employees. With us today are Amina Babulia, Galveen Wiener Singh, Zachary Bedard, and Renee Merkernuk. I gotta get those names right, thank you. I want to tell you, Commissioners, by way of the CEO's report, we've been telling you about the TTC's participation in a North American-wide contest that the transit industry has been conducting. Now, this competition among transit agencies across the continent was designed to encourage young people, 18 to 25, to pursue a career in transit. Now, this is the first year that the TTC took part in the Introducing Youth to American Infrastructure Innovation Challenge. And I'm very proud to tell you that our young team here took top honors at the North American competition last week. In keeping with the sustainable mobility theme of this year's challenge, their presentation on how to improve customer flow on public transit earned them first place. So my thanks go out to all the volunteers and participants who offered up the innovation and creativity ideas. I also want to thank, and you can see the next picture on the screen, I'd also like to thank Andrea Ruiz and Ike Onuoha, who mentored and supported these young individuals, and they're on the screen virtually, just to let everybody know. You know, everyone who participated and showed incredible thoughtfulness and professionalism in their presentations. But now what I'd also like to do, I thought it was important that I invite Dr. Beverly Scott, the founder of Introducing Youth to American Infrastructure, Inc., to say a few words. And I just wanted to let you know that Beverly, I consider her a friend, and she's been a mentor of mine for a good number of years. And she's also, I would tell you, she has been a CEO of quite a few major transit systems across North America. So I'm really happy to have her today just to say a few words. So with that, Beverly, if I could just let you say a few words.
Okay, thank you so much, Rick. I really feel like I'm at home. Hello, Andrew, the Philotica, the whole 9 yards. It is absolutely an honor to be able to join you, and on behalf of introducing the board of directors and our team here at Introducing Youth to American Infrastructure. And we've been at this with deeply with youth for the last 5 years, to really be here to celebrate and lift up the tremendous accomplishment of the young professionals, your young adults who just, I mean, all of our participants, winners, we had 12 big major areas, local host organizers, 19 transportation agencies that participated with teams, and the TTC team went away with the winning honors, followed by the as they call themselves, the transit titans in the mighty Bay Area, Denver, Chicago, Boston, Indianapolis, just unbelievable. So let me tell you, and I want to also acknowledge your leadership for stepping out there. We've been doing programming on career awareness, deep career awareness for 5 years now, but actually bringing in the opportunity for young people to be proactively engaged in community building and problem solving within their communities. That is the magic and what we do, impacting people, communities, households, and society. And it is that connection that is the magic sauce. Nobody can do that better than we can do it. Delighted you had partnerships that you brought to the table, amalgamated. Andrew, President Marvin were part of our career awareness part in terms of showing young people the tremendous essential frontline positions that are the heart and soul of the transit systems. They were presenters. Dr. Todd Littman, one of the most equity-centered writers, I think, globally in the whole issue of equity. And then, of course, locally, your conference, Toronto chapter of the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. It takes all of that. So at IA, we are unapologetically equity-centered. And we are, our programming is open to all, but we are very focused on historically underrepresented young people, and that is women across the board. And it's not just our sector, it's across the infrastructure sectors, energy, water, comms, whatever, but we're focused on transport, young women and historically young people of color. And it's about youth voice. It's about getting them engaged, and I cannot say enough about they brought their smarts, their passion, their purpose, and I can tell you, when you look at all the work that these young people did, you will be inspired that we are in good hands. So thank you for your leadership, because you can't make these programs happen without organizations like yours that get it, that if our people are our greatest asset, then we have to walk it, we have to show it, and we have to take the time to really proactively engage them. So I thank you, TTC, and they knocked it out of the ballpark. So thank you very much. I know I went over my minute.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. All right, thank you, Dr. Scott. I very much appreciate that. You know, as you can see, Dr. Scott is very passionate Transit's about people and about communities. It was something that I've learned over the years with her passion, so thank you. You're a good friend. What I'd like to do now is invite the four of them up just to take a picture with the board if we could. So welcome, come on up. All right, thank you for that. That was enjoyable. If I can have everybody's attention. I lost the crowd. They're back. They're back, sir.
Everybody wants to go play cricket.
Yeah, it was nice that the cricket team showed up. Appreciate that. All right, next, as you can see, we have two individuals sitting in the front. I'd like to bring back Lawrence Louie, our head of service planning. This is his fourth time speaking to the board this year. You know, as with previous presentations, Lawrence is here to give you some upcoming service changes and improvements what his team is working on over the next few months. Now, his team is doing real difficult work in challenging times as they work our service around the construction and congestion we see in Toronto this summer. He's also joined by Natalie Poole-Moffett, as you know, our Chief of Corporate Affairs, who's then going to talk a little bit about how we've enhanced communications and what we're doing around service changes. So if I could give it over to you, Lawrence, to start.
Great. Thank you, Rick, and thank you again to the board for having a chance to talk to you about some of our service changes coming up. I want to start by thanking our customers, especially on the East End, for all their patience over the past couple months. I know it's been extremely disruptive to service and the way people move around in the East End with all the construction projects that we're dealing with. I also want to give much appreciation for some of our frontline staff, especially some of our customer service reps that are out there on the street every single day today even, helping our customers move along and help them navigate in any language that they choose. I do want to talk about a couple changes that we started last week, and this is really listening to our customer concerns and feedback in terms of bringing it back some of the service that is important to them. As of last Tuesday on July 4th, we reinstated the 503 Kingston Road as a bus, which now operates every day until 8 p.m., after which the 505 Dundas streetcar, which is scheduled on Kingston Road, will operate after 8 p.m. when congestion is less, and this is also to help service in the core of downtown that was experiencing a lot of congestion and some reliability challenges. This replaces the extra 501, 504 bus service that we had on Queen Street East in Leslieville, and this is really bringing forward some changes that we have at the end of the month. I also am happy to report that the work at Queen and Coxwell, the track replacement work that we're doing there, that is finishing up ahead of schedule. We are currently commissioning the streetcar infrastructure there, and we hope to have streetcar service resumed on the 506 Carlton all the way to Coxwell Avenue starting sometime next week, and we'll make sure that customers are aware. And the 506 bus service that is running there, that will continue as an overlap to make sure that people are aware that that service is available to them. I just want to talk very quickly about our board period process. I know that we talk about this a lot. We adjust our schedules 10 times a year, and we call these board periods that are not related to the TTC board, but related to how our operators sign up for work on boards. So if anyone ever asks what a board period is, and people always ask, do we come here for the approval? That's something I just wanted to help dispel a little of that confusion. They run through 10 times a year, and we always have a good cycle of different changes that we do throughout the year. We have 4 categories of service changes, whether it's route and service adjustments, changes for on-time performance, our seasonal service adjustments, and of course, construction and disruptions. There's a lot of things that happen unplanned that we know, and we aren't aware of when we're planning these schedules, and that's where the run is directed and the demand responsive service kicks in, and we have a lot of that right now to help us respond to the many changes that are happening to date. That's a good premise for me to talk about some changes that will be starting on July 29th and July 30th at the end of this month in terms of our next board period. We will be formally restoring the evening service on lines 1 and line 2. So we will have 6-minute or better service in the evenings on both those lines. We have 9 bus routes where we're adjusting service up and down depending on what we're seeing in terms of ridership. We're also taking advantage to fix some connections and improving some schedule deficiencies in terms of whether or not the buses are evenly spaced. We're also making a construction change that we made on the 31 Greenwood bus permanent. We've had some good feedback on that in terms of improving service in that part of the city, and we are reallocating service to make that service permanent. On-time performance, we have 5 routes that are going to see improvements to their schedules to adjust for congestion and other variability that we're seeing. That is on the 45 Kipling, the 75 Sherbourne, 82 Rosedale, and the 505 and 506 streetcars. In terms of construction, as I mentioned, Gerrard and Coxwell, that will be formally changed in terms of the schedules, in terms of that restoration of service. We're also adjusting service on the Ontario line construction on Queen East. So as I mentioned, the 503 bus will be restored formally, and that will, starting July 29th, operate all day, every day, with the 505 streetcar being cut back accordingly. We'll also be making a change on the 506 on the west end to facilitate some water construction by the City of Toronto on Howard Park Avenue, with the 506 Carlton streetcar will be diverted to Dundas West Station. This is the map of the change. This is the same map that we saw at the last board meeting, so I won't linger too long here. But quickly, just an outlook in terms of September. We know we're preparing for back to school and back to work. There's a couple routes we'll be increasing service based on some ridership counts we got in the spring, and that includes on the 41 Keel and the 939 Finch Express. A big one is the resumption of streetcar service out to Long Branch. So this has been a long time coming in terms of the construction at King, Queen, Queensway, Roncesvalles, and we're excited to see that wrap up over the summer. And we'll be restoring streetcar service out to Long Branch as a new route number, the 507 Long Branch. The history geeks will know that that was the former number of the 507 Long Branch streetcar, but we're bringing it back. We'll also bring back the 508 Lakeshore streetcar during rush hours. That will provide direct service from Long Branch all the way into downtown via King Street. We'll have a number of on-time performance improvements on a number of routes that you see there. And most importantly, bringing back a lot of the service for high schools, colleges, and universities as everyone's going back to school. And that's been a very important group of customers that's been back to us over the past year. 3 large construction projects to talk about. We'll have more details about that on our website very soon. We'll have a full replacement of the Queen Street streetcar on the east end with buses as Metrolinx requires us to remove streetcar service as they replace the overpass over the Queen Street in Leslieville. This will be accompanied by an increase of service on the 503. Another very impactful one is the start of our work at St. Clair West Station. We'll be doing some critical structural repair work. This will require a full replacement of the 512 streetcar with buses, but we are working with the city on adjustments to signals, road restrictions to make sure those buses run smoothly, and we'll make sure customers know about those changes well in advance. And also at Dufferin Gate Loop, we'll be replacing the tracks there to make sure that is ready for King streetcar service as we ramp up in the coming years. And that's just a minor change in terms of the 29, 929, and the 504B. And one more project that's ending, Main Street Station. Thank our customers over there. The bus terminal and streetcar terminal will reopen in the beginning of September, and service will resume as normal. I'll now pass it over to Natalie, and as you see, there's a lot to communicate, and she'll love to share some of the successes we've had.
So thank you, Lawrence. So as you know, communicating in today's day and age is not easy. There's a lot of noise out there. So we took the corporate team, the stakeholder team, and the customer team, pulled them together with transit control, Lawrence's team, and diversions, and said, let's think outside the box. What can we do that's different? So on top of the typical news releases that we put out, in June it was 6, we actually held a media briefing for the first time, and we sat down with Fort and Lawrence and media and talked through all the changes and the importance to why they were happening. And it really made a difference. We got a lot of coverage from CBC, and CP24 actually ran us all day on June 19th, the day after the changes went into effect, which was a Monday, and ran that all day for us. So that was wonderful. We had over 100 mentions in June on the East End service changes. Sentiment was mostly neutral. We had some negative, but we took all of those and changed them and brought them to Lawrence, and he was able to do some tweaks to service, which really, really helped us. And internally, we made sure all of our staff knew what was going on. Next slide, please. So stakeholder, we really did something different. We brought back some old school tactics. We actually had staff going into Broadview Station holding pop-up seminars with our customers. We gave out over 20,000 postcards, handed out over a 2-week period by CR staff, CSR staff, and service planning staff. We interacted directly with our customers and made sure they knew exactly what was happening on the 504, the 505, and the 100 routes. We also did something a little different. We went to the Hennick Bridgepoint Hospital and had a 1-day pop-up there. So anybody going in and out of the hospital would be aware of the service changes, as well as we did our first video on all the service changes and had over 10,500 views in the first few days. So it's not everything, but it's part of everything that we're doing. And then on top of that, we went out to Coxwell Station, giving out 3,000 postcards, canvassed East Chinatown businesses, and made sure we did our communications in both Chinese and in English to make sure everyone knew what was going on. Next slide. Thank you. And customer communications was huge. I don't know if you've been to Broadview lately, but the vinyl signage, you can't miss it. It's on every door. It shows people where they're going. There's streetcar change information on one-page website for people to easily print off. We have QSR codes. We have floor graphics on the sidewalks to direct customers to where they're supposed to be, as well as geofence digital advertising to targeted postal codes in the area to make sure people can see and understand as we move through. We're not done, but we're making differences, and we're really excited. So together, Angela and I are going to keep pushing and pushing as hard as we can to make sure there's as much information out there as possible. So thank you.
We have a few questions. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, when you said that you reach out to the counselors, like some of these issues would be quite geographically focused in terms of the bulk of the people that are impacted, so like Roncesvalles, for example.
Correct.
Do they put that then into the communications that they send out to their local residents?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Through the chair, we've also created a stakeholder update email that we send out. Anybody can sign up on it in the front of our website, and we just inundate the information in there. We do counselor updates, and that information is for them to put directly into their mailers. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Moyes has a question as well.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. So you mentioned that there will be a reduction in the Queen East 501 service. And I know that you said that you're going to increase on King Street and another area as well in your report, but why is there a reduction in service though? I mean, like there's still, you seem confused by my question. In your presentation, you mentioned that there was a reduction in service in 501 Queen Street East. So I'm asking, in relation to what? Why are you reducing service when I know, for example, that we've closed Queen Street, in the downtown core, which impacts my ward?
So through the chair, that must be where I was mentioning we're replacing the 501, 504 service with the 503. Just for clarification, that's what you were asking about. So that was extra bus on the Leslieville area of Queen Street East, where we ran extra service, which was mirrored what the 503 had done before. So we're just replacing that with the 503. What we're seeing on Queen East between Broadview and Yonge Street, that remains unchanged. So that's still being operated with the same bus service, which we've seen really good uptake, and we're monitoring that service to make sure it runs reliably, especially in the fall with some schedule changes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, because that was my concern. Okay.
And thank you. Commissioner Ainsley, I believe you have a question as well.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, appreciate the presentation. I'm trying to understand, so if I use a bus or a streetcar and I text the number on the pole that the bus is going to come, and it tells me when the bus or streetcar is going to come, how is that done using GPS, or how is that determined when the vehicle is going to show up at my spot?
Through the chair, that's a service that a lot of our customers rely on. I use that on an everyday basis to get to my stop. And those are based on the GPS locations of our vehicles, but only if those vehicles are scheduled. So if they're scheduled if they're actually formally scheduled. So that bus is designated to be on that route. If we add extra buses or extra streetcars, those are outside of the schedule, but they're running on that route. Right now, they're not visible because of the technical limitations of the older system that we're using for predictions. But we are, through our vision upgrades, moving to a different real-time feed that allows us to add extra vehicles, and that will improve the quality of predictions, as well as moving to a newer provider of next vehicle predictions that will improve upon that, because all those predictions are based on the schedule.
Okay. And do we test that system to see if the predictions are accurate, or?
So through the chair, we provide a feed, and depending on the application, they may apply their own algorithm in terms of improving upon those predictions. And there are many websites that are for all agencies that look at how well those predictions match real life. So that's why you may see different predictions when you go from app to app or service to service. Definitely with the upgrade that we have, we should get better predictions because we could add in extra trips and other things to make those predictions more valid.
Okay. But when I text the number on the poll, like that prediction should be fairly accurate.
Through the chair, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Back to Rick.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I want to say thank you to Lawrence and Natalie, as always, for the great work that they do. I also want to just make a quick clarification. When we were talking about the introducing youth to American infrastructure, I mentioned that there's video, and I want to let the board know that everybody will forward that video to everybody so you can get an understanding of what work was actually done. So just for clarity, thank you for that. As I come to wrapping up, I just want to talk about, Commissioners, the TTC is also proud to once again be supporting and participating in the annual Underground Freedom Train ride to celebrate Emancipation Day on August 1st. This special event to mark the role of the Underground Railroad in Canadian history takes place on Line 1, Yonge University, on Sunday, July 31st, starting at 10:45 p.m. Now, the symbolic midnight ride is hosted by the Blackhurst Cultural Center and ushers in Emancipation Day on August 1st, and it's open to the whole event's open to the public. You know, activities celebrating this annual ride will include singing, poetry readings, and drum playing. By recognizing Emancipation Day and Emancipation Month, I should say, it reminds us of how important it is to address anti-Black racism and to wipe out discrimination in all forms once and for all. You know, we see that we're making progress, but I think we all agree as a society we have much more work to do. You know, our job at the TTC is to make connections. And speaking on behalf of all employees, we are very proud to help make this connection to an important moment in Canadian history and commemorate Emancipation Day. So finally, Chair, Board, just remind everybody that the next board meeting is scheduled to take place on Tuesday, September 26th, and I hope everyone has a safe and enjoyable summer. That concludes my opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Are there any speakers? Commissioner Moyes? What? I'm watching you at all moments.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, it's going to happen. With the chair, I should probably have asked this question earlier, but on-time performance standards. So reading the report, it said that, you know, we've lost thousands of minutes a year due to passenger-related incidents. Can you give us a breakdown of what these incidents are that causes such extensive delays?
Through the chair, I don't have handy the actual breakdown of all the incidences, but I'd be happy to come back and be able to give you that detailed breakdown in terms of you know, the granular details you'd like to see in terms of how the passenger incidences are actually impacting our on-time performance.
Okay, that'd be helpful. And one other question, I think I mentioned this to Mr. Larry yesterday. We had a meeting yesterday. One of the pet peeves it seems that a lot of residents seem to have, including a lot of my staff, is short turns of streetcars. People hop onto the streetcar, you know, and, you know, after 2 stops, they say, you know, the streetcar's turning around for whatever reason. You know, and this again is one of the many things that people lose faith in the system. Is there a way we can perhaps change that or enhance that, or, you know, what causes these problems on such a regular basis?
Through the chair. So streetcar short turns are not a preferred way that we want to operate the line, but generally speaking, it is a line management tool that we use, particularly in streetcar world, where one streetcar going down that isn't on a right-of-way will cause a backlog of other streetcars. So the idea will be if that happens and you've got significant bunching and gapping, one of the ways to try to get back on schedule is to turn back the odd streetcar depending on what part of the line that you're on, so that you don't have a situation where you've got a completely full streetcar and 20, 30 seconds later you have an empty streetcar. So there are some advantages to actually taking that empty streetcar and turning it around. In a perfect world, that's not something that we want to do or we'd like to do, but sometimes it is something that it is advantageous so that you can get back to schedule or some sort of a schedule after you've had a lengthy delay.
Do you find these things happening more frequently or less frequently?
So stats show that it's actually going up. It does go up as the construction season and the congestion does occur, so it is directly proportional, yes.
Okay, thank you.
If I could add something, Chair, through the Chair. Commissioner, what we're going to be doing for September is, you mentioned on-time performance, and the overall numbers look down on streetcar and kind of stagnant, I'll say, on the bus. So what I'm asked staff to do is now break down for September and break it into categories. Where are all the bus routes that are surpassing the 90% on-time performance? Where's that group between 80 and 90%, right, that we're so close? And then we break it down into two other categories. Where are the groups that we have to work on because the public knows and our customers know we're feeling them, right? Whether it's construction or road congestion, right? Things that we have to work on. And then the fourth group is the construction, because we're trying to look at how we do things differently. Lawrence mentioned, right, how the CAT AVL system tracks what's scheduled. And as you've heard us talk about, we're putting runners-directed buses all over the city to fill in gaps for people while we work with clever devices to change the CAT AVL system, what we talked about yesterday, so that we can actually track those exact vehicles to make it more convenient for customers to see, oh, a bus is there, even though there's a delay. So we're going to start looking at things differently and reporting out in September to kind of answer those type of questions for you.
Any other questions? Okay. Commissioner De Laurentiis.
Councillor Moy's question just raised one for me. I take the subway a lot, and the one I have to say irritant for me is that when there's something going on, and the subway is stopped, an announcement is made by I presume the operator, and depending on people's voices, it's either really clear and crisp or mumble, blah, 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 and you can't understand what they've said. So just a suggestion that it may be helpful to the operators who probably then, get harassed when people get off saying, what were you talking about? Just maybe help them to hear their own voices through, as part of training, just get them to listen to themselves when they're making the announcement, so then they know what it sounds like to the passenger. Because really, and I know I'm getting hard of hearing as I get older, so that doesn't help. But we're often, in the subway, people are looking at each other saying, what did he say? What did she say? Like, what was that about? So just a suggestion to improve that, the quality of the ride. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Actually, I just want to follow up with Commissioner Moyes' question about passenger incidents, whatever and how they are impacting the service. I know I'd asked about a particular incident, which I believe you folks did a little report. Will you be doing a report for the next board meeting in terms of answering Commissioner Moyes' questions? How is the rest of the board being informed?
Yes, we'll bring, through the chair, yes, we'll bring back that in for the September board meeting.
Okay, thank you. And is there a way to sort of break it down into types of incidents and how that's impacting time and maybe a cost? Because if there's a way to do it, right? I don't know if you can, but as we talk about things like platform edge doors, which are very expensive, there's also a cost to people.
Absolutely.
System.
Absolutely, through the chair again, yes. We break it down into
time, of course.
Right, we have that. We break it into the three factors. There's a vehicle impact, there's infrastructure impact, and the customer impact or employee impact. So we'll break it down, and then we also look at the number of minutes for each one of these incidents, all right, and see where we can improve on service. We'll do that for each one of the modes and bring it back for you in September.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Okay, no one else wanted to speak, right? We're all good? No questions? Okay. Yep, thank you. Motion to receive the report, please. Commissioner Mantis, thank you very much. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. On to item number 2. Approved minutes of the ACAT General Monthly Meeting for May 25th. I believe Vice Chair Erica Tanney is with us. And I'll turn that over to you, Erica. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And ACAT as well would like to offer its congratulations to our new mayor, Olivia Chow. We wish her well and a long and successful mandate. So I am Erica Tanney, Vice Chair of ACAT, and the Chair, Anita Dressler, sends her regrets. You have before you the materials from ACAT, and I'd like to focus on 3 main messages from ACAT today. The first is regarding accessibility and safety on the transit system. So we want to note that there have been some significant improvements, that ACAT members are providing very positive feedback about the new policy of having the frontline operators at TTC subway stations out of the booths, and they're engaging more with customers in the station. They're providing assistance, and we're receiving a lot of positive feedback. As well, there appear to be some very robust safety measures in the designated waiting areas, payphones with direct access to TTC emergency reporting. However, we do want to note that there is a notable incongruence between the concerns and the lived experiences of our members, also the media reporting, versus the messaging that the TTC is seeking to convey about safety on transit. We're hearing a lot of anecdotal complaints about some implementation failures with regards to emergency measures, concerns in response times and procedures for emergency evacuation protocols, and I think you'll hear more about that as well at the next board meeting. And as well, some ongoing structural issues have been noted. And I'd provide the example of line 2, that the emergency signaling is not accessible to individuals who are using mobility devices. It's just physically too high. And there is nothing directing individuals with sight impairment to where those emergency notification systems are located, especially on the trains. And there's also a general malaise amongst disabled system users and seniors that they're quite uniquely vulnerable, and they're feeling that a safety concern on the system. That ties in as well with the issue of the re-registration of Wheel-Trans legacy customers. I see that this is on the agenda for a little bit later in this meeting. You'll hear more about that. But essentially, new users are categorized into one of 3 transit categories, which is either a full use of Wheel-Trans system, conditional use of the system, or a temporary use. And there's a move to recategorize the legacy customers who are registered prior to 2017, with the consideration that the TTC is now much more accessible in 2023 than it was prior to 2017. However, there's been a lot of extremely negative media reporting with high-profile individuals and some quite compelling circumstances. And we really can't get away from the fact that legacy customers, for them, often there is an identifiable effect that legacy customers who previously received unconditional Wheel-Trans service are now being recategorized into more restrictive categories. So there is ongoing, there are some ongoing concerns to be addressed there, some ongoing work to be done. The second issue that we do want to note is regarding some of the transit construction. Transit construction causes significant challenges for accessibility. It's challenging to pivot rapidly to make routing adjustments that account for accessibility needs. And it's also, there are challenges regarding messaging and communication to the public in order to reach our members to convey those temporary or even sometimes long-term changes. And I found Commissioner De Laurentiis' comments a few minutes ago quite salient when she was talking about the communication of transit disruptions that can be sometimes inaudible, and that's certainly important for individuals who rely upon hearing as their main sense. So that's something ACAT is very focused upon right now in terms of the accessibility of rerouting, the messaging, the signage, the providing of information, and also ensuring that we're servicing the areas that our members need to appropriately reach. It has a broad accessibility impact, and I did want to highlight as well that our members have noted that there are other transit projects in the city, such as the Ontario Line, which is being permitted to cause some major disruption of TTC transit service, particularly in the East End. You know, at times it relates to work that's not scheduled to begin until 2025 or later, but is causing the transit disruption right now. So ACAT is really urging the TTC to engage with the city and with partnerships in transit on the issue of transit in Toronto generally, to ensure that accessibility is at the forefront and that transit disruptions are both justified and not unduly broad, because it does have a significant impact upon our members. And that brings me to the final issue, which is that unfortunately, ACAT continues to be excluded in a significant way from providing accessibility input when it comes to transit projects that involve TTC partnerships with Metrolinx. And this is beginning to reach a crisis point. ACAT is not being consulted. We had a Scarborough Station motion, which is still pending, where ACAT had identified several significant accessibility concerns and had brought a motion that the design be rejected. There are issues being noted regarding wayfinding for individuals with impaired senses. The means by which we design and implement wayfinding through our stations is quite important, and the consistency between the joint TTC Metrolinx project and other TTC existing lines needs to be consistent. And it seems that unfortunately, we have no information regarding plans for wayfinding, and in our view, there is a lot of unnecessary and inappropriate secrecy. And it seems that not only is ACAT not receiving information, but that there is no plan to seek ACAT's engagement, that there's a plan to provide ACAT with some kind of an update in the third quarter of this year. But as we know, the opportunity for ACAT to engage at the beginning stages is quite important in terms of cost efficiency and effective accessibility for our members. With that, I would just like to conclude by saying that the TTC does remain a leader and the gold standard in transit accessibility in North America. And ACAT wants to emphasize that it's critical to ensure that ACAT remains a strong voice at the table, particularly where Toronto Transit is engaging other stakeholders, such as Metrolinx. So subject to any questions, those are my submissions.
Thank you very much, Erica. I believe we have some questions, so hold on. Commissioner Holiday, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair Tanny, for your comments to the committee. I had a question about the meeting minutes from May 25th. In the meeting minutes, there's a mention that a member of the committee tried the designated waiting area button and didn't get a response. And I wondered if you could elaborate a little bit on that, if you remember the details, and which of the buttons it was, because if I recall, there's two. One's information and one is emergency.
Thank you. My understanding was that was a member who used a mobility device, had fallen and had been attempting to secure emergency services and couldn't reach the button. And when he did reach the button, if I'm not mistaken, did not receive either any or an appropriate and timely response. I can certainly advise that we are hearing some of these anecdotal it's anecdotal, but there seem to be a lot of concerns regarding some of this this kind of a circumstance. I note as well that I was present for a board meeting a few months ago where an individual had presented statistics regarding the number of calls to emergency services that were answered and those which were unanswered, and had some concerning statistics in those regards. So that does continue to be a concern. I believe it was an emergency response button somewhere near the designated waiting area near an elevator. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, was it in order for me to ask a question of staff on this at this point?
I'm good with it.
Thank you. And maybe I could just ask staff, less about the particular incident and more about, in general, if you could talk to me or the committee just about what we do to test those buttons, and if we've identified a unique issue, or is there a broader issue?
Through the chair. So as we've mentioned, I believe the ACAT chair is talking about the PAI, the passenger assistance intercom. And there's two. One is the emergency button, which goes directly to the transit control, and it comes with video and audio. And then there's also an info button, which goes to the station hub. There is a possibility that this occurred prior to the station hubs being fully commissioned, but I do assure you that there are annual tests that are done on these. I will take this away just to make sure that we take a look at our data and are confident that we are responding as we should.
Would it be possible, I mean, I don't want to put a motion or anything, just an undertaking of just to spend a little bit of resources just to go out there and try some of these buttons? And I'm not saying to replace your annual testing, but maybe just to do a few of them. I'm tempted to do it myself, but I don't want to do that and cause resources to be used of the Transit Control Center. But, just to know if there's something does pop up, then we look a little deeper.
Through the chair, we can easily do that. We do regular sweeps of the station, so we can be 100% confident we can put this on the checklist to make sure that our technology is working through our station staff.
Thank you. No other questions, Mr.
Through the chair, if I could, will assure you, Councillor, that in the August CEO report, you get an overview of the review, because I know we have Jamal on board, but I'm not going to call on him right now, about the monitoring policy that we have, because as you saw in the CEO's written report, we have now opened the last hub. And so the hub now watches, these 6 hubs watch all our 75 stations. They all have grouping in the stations based on zones, and all those intercoms are supposed to go back to either the control center or the hub. So we're going to lay out what the policies and procedures are and what our findings are for this for you for August.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. I guess no further questions. Can I have a motion to receive the ACAT minutes? Thank you, Commissioner. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, we're on to, thank you, Erica. Really appreciate that. Item number 4, Wheel-Trans Transformation Program 2023 update. I believe we have, there are a number of speakers. When are we doing the presentation? Speakers, okay.
The first speaker is Ali Minay. Ali? Okay, we'll move on. The next speaker is Jane Rowan. Go ahead, Jane, you have 5 minutes. Jane Rowan, please go ahead. All right, we'll go back to you, Jane. The next speaker is Jean Greenberg.
I didn't realize I wasn't unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. I wanted to say the meeting so far, I'm here because I can't use the regular TTC anymore, but it made me really nostalgic for the days that I could. So I'm speaking about, well, my name for, I said my name. Yeah, so I'm almost 81 and I live in Ward 12 and I'm on low income. And after I'm a new user with conditional eligibility, which I just got a few months ago, and it's for rush hour only. And my issues that I want to speak about is the problem with the amount of time left for appeal and the idea of that conditional eligibility of making that mandatory. And I think I'm a good case example of both those issues. So I have multiple disabilities, and well, the ones at the top are vision loss from macular degeneration, osteoarthritis, and everywhere where you can have it. And I'm looking forward or not to a knee replacement soon. I have severe balance and constant dizziness so balance problems and constant dizziness when I'm standing. And people have been telling me for years to use Wheel-Trans, and I was stubborn. I like TTC. I like going on the regular TTC, but I began to realize that I was just getting too exhausted and I was too shaky. So I applied in January. Yeah, started the process in January. It took months for my doctor to respond, and then there needed to be corrections. So it went over a number of issues. And then I finally mailed it on March the 28th, and I received the conditional eligibility late in the day on May the 8th, with the letter dated April the 12th, with 30 days to appeal. And in the time period when I started to apply and that date, I became completely unable to use the TTC, the regular TTC. So I had to literally next morning rush to the post office, send off the appeal. I had no time to consult with a doctor or anything else. And what else happened? Yeah. So, yeah, sorry. So what happened was I finally figured out how to use it, and I was using the self-booking tool. And because I only had access during rush hour, so I was booking those trips, and then I was using Uber for anything that wasn't in rush hour. And I was spending hundreds of dollars, which I don't have. And I finally, just by accident, found out that you can actually override the family of services thing if you have conditional disability, at least I guess for now. But I didn't know that. Like, it's sort of at the bottom of the screen, right? So it's been very frustrating, and I think my main point is that if you make conditional, if you make family of services mandatory for conditional users, there's all kinds of things that can happen. One thing is for people like me whose condition has changed very rapidly, then I'm stuck without anything at all. And I feel like I just feel like my dignity has been taken away, and I feel humiliated because I'm old enough to make my own decisions. I've been making them for quite a few years. And all of a sudden people are telling me what I can and can't do. And I think I know better when I can and can't do, and I'd like people to have the freedom to make those decisions for themselves. And you know, I think that's about it. I just wanted to just look at what I wrote down in case I left anything out. No, I think that's mainly it. So I'm still waiting for my appeal. It's now been, let's see. So I sent it in on May the 10th. It would have been May, June. Yeah, so 2 months, and I haven't heard about the appeal yet. So I'm begging you, please do not make it mandatory for people to use family of services. Thank you. And extend the appeal time for situations like what I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Did anyone have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next speaker.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Conroy. Jennifer, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. The family services is still a major concern for people with disabilities. Getting anywhere on the family services takes twice as long as it would with door-to-door service and Wheel-Trans. With door-to-door service than on Wheel-Trans. People riding transit around Toronto should have the option whether to take the family services or strictly Wheel-Trans. In the past, I've been told that clients do have this option, but a lot of people with disabilities don't feel like they do at the present time. Several of my friends and colleagues are TTC Wheel-Trans users, and we are all experiencing the same feelings. There's an uneasiness. We're not sure that family services is right for us, yet we are told that it is, and the point of view of the TTC seems to be that we should just accept what we are given, don't make a scene, don't ask questions, and quietly do what we are told. We know that we need Wheel-Trans to get safely around the city, and we know why we need it, yet we are being told that we need to explain why we need it. And most of us feel disheartened or ashamed doing this because it's as if the TTC doesn't believe us and we are being asked to prove it. We hear the words independent, spontaneous, and freedom being used. It's very hard to be spontaneous when you're waiting for Wheel-Trans rides or connecting TTC rides if they are late or if you miss them altogether. You don't feel very independent when you can't get to a doctor's appointment or to activities with friends or to work on time. Showing up late because you spend more time navigating the bus system than working generally doesn't look good to supervisors or would-be employers. Losing a job affects independence greatly, as would missing necessary appointments. And this is a direct correlation to our freedom. Why bother looking for a job or being social if you can't get anywhere on time? I'm not discouraging anyone from taking the family services if they are able and they feel it's the right decision for them. I am, however, saying that just because it's the right option for one doesn't mean it's the right for another. We are all different, and all our voices need to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Were there any questions? No? Okay, seeing none, I think we have another speaker.
The next speaker is Chloe Thompson. All right. Our next speaker then is Adam Cohoon. Go ahead, Adam.
After this, I have to quickly go to work. For the interest of time, 4 and 5 seem to be a little bit connected together. Just give me 1 minute or we're gonna have interference. Alexa, turn off the TV. Okay. Now we won't have interference. Anyway, I am just gonna go on and speak more of what I was gonna say for Agenda 5 because it is duly connected. I'm only gonna make one request of the TTC. I know you can't formally make requests, but this will show that they want to meet us halfway. I am going to recommend that on both the Young line, both the Young Route 97 run all day, all the way down to Union, to all the way down to Union, as it does during rush hour, to give service for people that don't want to go up above. And even if there are changes on Yonge Street, that it be interlined with the Bay bus. And I also want to encourage the Bloor Danforth line to have a parallel bus service. Now, in some areas where bike lanes or it is just too narrow, if you do have to go on parallel side streets, that should be done. But we need to give both people with disabilities an option that find taking the streetcar or taking the subway too intimidating. And frankly, for people that are just getting anxious going underground after hearing the stories, whether you're right, whether the media has perpetrated them too much and stuff, but you cannot argue somebody's perceived lived experience needs to let them have what they feel is proper safety. So I think to actually show the community, we do have to honestly look at making a alternative to going underground and properly work with the people. And if people are gonna say that's logistically hard, we as people now with the changes of Wheel-Trans are making logistical changes in our own lives to get around. So that the least the TTC can do is make 2 bus routes that even run overnight. So all the physical infrastructure is there just to make them run 24/7. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Does anyone have any questions? Commissioner Ainsley.
Adam, thanks for your presentation, and thank you for coming to Executive Committee yesterday as well. How long have you been experiencing these difficulties?
I tried using more accessible transit during 2007 to 2010. Or 2013, I was actually using subways and some other services a little bit more often. But again, I physically can't push the buttons of the elevators and do it easily. So I was asking strangers to push buttons and give me access to elevators and whatnot, which was fine in a 2007 world. I don't think I would 10 years now with how things are going, trust strangers in the subway to actually give me assistance. And it's one of those things where it's impossible to really go east-west because there are no long-distance parallel bus lines. There are a few streetcar lines, but streetcars were inaccessible. And I pre-pandemic, I did a lot of volunteer work up at what is now Vibrant Healthcare Alliance. It used to be called the Ann Johnson Health Station for the former councillor. And they're up near Montgomery in Eglinton. And I used to love it on nice days when I was done work after 2 p.m. I could usually take the 97 when the 97B bus was running back downtown to my, I lived at that time on Bloor Street. And I noticed that that bus was wonderfully actually filled with lots of different people from lots of different walks of life that maybe couldn't traverse those hills. And so I just think because it's not, because we're making a few changes that maybe the TTC could make a few changes and everybody could agree. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Adam. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next speaker.
I'm going to go back to Jane Rowan. Jane, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I've been a Wheel-Trans rider since 2017, and I was lucky enough to walk across the room and was able to walk and had a cane. So I was classified as a conditional user. But I've experienced a couple of what I'd call dangerous, but they're actually difficult trips. I was stranded outside a subway station waiting for a shuttle bus 2 times due to a subway breakdown. One time it was for an hour and there was no seating outside on the sidewalk for me. And finally the subway started again. On another trip from Yonge and Sheppard, I was given a drive to the subway station at North York. Unfortunately, I was dropped at a non-accessible entrance, and after going down to the trains, I got confused and ended on the wrong side of the track, which meant more walking and climbing. From here, I traveled to Don Mills Station, where I was to wait in a bus terminal downstairs for a Wheel-Trans pickup at the Wheel-Trans pickup area for my ride. There was no seating, and after half an hour, I could report a late vehicle. Another 15 minutes occurred, and I still had no ride, and still no seating, and there are no attendants on that floor to help me. Finally, my ride arrived, and he told me he did not know how to get into the bus pickup area. This happens as well at Broadview subway station, because some drivers just don't know they can drive in there. Recently, I booked a ride to Don Mills Mall, and it's in my area. A Wheel-Trans vehicle would take me a few blocks to the Don Mills bus stop at Eglinton Avenue. That's a very busy place with lots of construction and lots of traffic, no seating or shelter. I would take the bus to a stop on Don Mills Road across from the mall, where another bus would drive me in, and then I would be picked up by a Wheel-Trans vehicle to take me to the store. This trip is normally about 15 minutes, and there's no way this solution would get me there in a timely and safe manner. So I choose direct. And finally, I have taken a family of services across town to my mother's. She's at 4005 Eglinton West. That was a lot. That was a one-way, 2-hour trip with all the vehicle changes. I was dropped off at main subway station instead of my local Broadview. I had to wait for the train, the subway, no seating. And finally, I got to James Station, where I had to wait for another Wheel-Trans pickup to take me up to my mom's. Well, at this time, I was a bit early, and I could not call them to get an earlier pickup because this family of services doesn't allow you to do ask for earlier pickup. So the ride back was the same too. So all in all, it was a 2-hour trip, and it took longer to go than going to Barrie, for instance. And the problem was, during COVID, I could only see for my mother for an hour. So here I was, 2 hours one way and 2 hours the other way for an hour visit. On many of these trips, too, you're lucky if you find a washroom. So if you're in transit 2 hours and you're a senior, washrooms are important. Anyways, this is unsafe for the rider, no matter what their disability or age. The good news is, though, I got a walker now, so I can sit where I go. So that'll make life easier. And thank you again for letting me speak.
Thank you, Jane. Did anyone have any questions of Jane? No? Okay. Thanks again. Next speaker.
All right.
Our next speaker is Janet Rodriguez. Go ahead.
Afternoon, everybody, and thank you for welcoming us Wheel-Trans users to be here. My name is Janet Rodriguez. I use she and her pronouns, and I've been using Wheel-Trans since 2003. I use a tall walker, a wheelchair, a power wheelchair, a walker, 1 cane, 2 canes. And only one time when I was actually feeling pretty good and I left my cane behind, I tried to get into the vehicle and the driver looked me up and down, maybe because I look kind of young, and said, "Are you going to use Wheel-Trans?" It made me feel this small. I was so happy that I was feeling quite good enough that my body even needed at that moment the cane. And I felt this small because somebody was questioning my humanity. Are you deserving of the service? Somebody else is the judge of who is to be disabled or who's supposed to be disabled. I understand that re-enrollment is as a result of the 2017 or the accessibility AODA legislation. But I'm very interested on 2 things. How quickly we look at a legislation when it's only going to maybe help us save money rather than looking at the humanity in the legislation. I am very respectful of the law, but let's not remember when years passed, not even too long ago, people from a certain color of skin were not allowed, were not considered people, were not allowed to vote. When women were not full persons allowed to vote. So just because the law says so, that doesn't make it humane, that doesn't make it right. So we've had this legislation since 2005. And just like one of my previous fellow speakers said, very rarely hear the TTC doing something fantastic and fabulous and having accessible transportation for us, such as the August 1st March. Are they going to have massive Wheel-Trans rides that can take us there? So we're always an afterthought or after conversation. The reason that I am speaking here today is so we can shift the gaze from, oh, they have given us 3, and I'm going to read what the legislation said. For purposes of eligibility for specialized transportation service providers, aka the TTC Wheel-Trans, shall categorize persons with disabilities. Can you really? I don't even know my disability. The beginning of June, I was getting ready to go to Pride March. And Thursday, that weekend, I was flat on my bed with a disc herniation. it's like, if you have a disability, you cannot necessarily predict, are you going to be okay in the morning or in the afternoon? We live with the disabilities, and believe me, when I feel well enough, I walk and I try to bring as much normalcy to my life, even though I'm allergic to that word, normal. I think that when we are looking at this legislation and these categories, we also need to look at the legislation can be faulty, and the duty of services providers such as the TTC should be maybe be paired with the spirit of the law, of the legislation. And it's on purpose, part 1, interpretation, purpose. Number 2, it says developing and implementing and enforcing accessibility standards in order to achieve accessibility for all Ontarians with disabilities. And it doesn't say from this category only. It says for all Ontarians. And we need to develop and implement these accessibility standards to achieve accessibility, not just temporary accessibility or permanent accessibility, accessibility. When they talk about barriers in the definition section 2, they say that barriers mean anything that prevents a person with a disability from fully participating in all aspects of society because of their disability. And they go to list what kind of barriers: physical barriers, could be an architectural barriers, information and communication, and here's the most important one: an attitudinal barriers, a policy or a practice. And we need to be critical. We need to look at ourselves and see, are we implementing this with the long-term aim to save money on our bodies?
Janet, can I just ask you to wrap up? You're about 5.5 minutes. Thank you.
My apologies. I didn't see a clock.
No worries.
Yesterday in
If you
City
could just
Hall,
wrap
they
it up,
actually
that's
had
okay.
a clock.
No worries.
Okay, sure. So then are we looking at this re-enrollment services with actually the spirit of the legislation to provide full accessibility for people with disabilities? Are we appealing for more funding long-term, or we are actually looking at saving dollars on us, the bodies of the users of the TTC?
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Janet. Appreciate your deputation. Next speaker, please.
Final speaker on this item is Chloe Tang Poonprush.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Chloe Tang Poonprush. I am a volunteer with the Community Transit Advocacy Group TTC Riders. Our organization is deeply concerned with the Wheel-Trans Transformation Program and its far-reaching and negative consequences it has for Wheel-Trans users. As we understand it, the Wheel-Trans Transformation Program is primarily designed as a cost-cutting measure. In 2025, AODA legislation will allow for an increased expansion of eligibility for those who can use paratransit. And in theory, this should be good news, but instead, the TTC has an internal diversion target of 50% of all current Wheel-Trans users to be moved to conventional transit with the Family of Services model. They will lose door-to-door access, and with it, much of their mobility and their independence. And let's be clear here, the Wheel-Trans Transformation Program is not to the benefit of Wheel-Trans users. The reassessment of Wheel-Trans users as part of this change is, it really lacks transparency and it causes undue hardship. Reassessment is convoluted. It can require a doctor's note, appointments with specialists, and people to help you with this process. This takes time and it takes money. As well, appealing your status, it's a difficult process made worse by the fact that the appeals window is only 30 days. Some people, they are receiving their letters for their status a few days before the deadline is up, giving them no time to actually make an appeal. This is deeply unfair and it's frankly absurd. And there are many questions that are also left unanswered in the Wheel-Trans transformation program. For example, when will travel on family of services be made mandatory for conditional users? Did the TTC ever appeal to the province for additional funding to maintain the current standard of service given the expanded eligibility? And this change goes against the spirit of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. The AODA is supposed to be eliminating barriers. It's a piece of remedial legislation, so it's meant to right past wrongs. And so it's supposed to be implemented as liberally and as far-reaching as much as possible. And whilst the AODA legislation does require for the TTC to categorize users into conditional, unconditional, and temporary, it does not require for conditional or temporary users to be forced onto conventional transit. So in order for the goal of the AODA to be fulfilled, current service standards should be maintained given the expanded eligibility. And Wheel-Trans users, they need choice here. They should be able to choose if they want to take family of services, if they want to take conventional transit, or if they need door-to-door access. That decision should not be taken out of their hands. And you have heard many stories of people who were unfortunate enough to have had to deal with the consequences of the Wheel-Trans transformation program. So I urge you to take their experiences into consideration when you're dealing with policy matters related to Wheel-Trans and related to accessibility on the TTC as a whole. Thank you, and I can take questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No. Thank you for your deputation. I believe we now move on to presentation. Yeah. And I believe Cameron Penman, who's the head of Wheel-Trans. Thank you.
Good afternoon, TTC Board members. My name is Cameron Penman, and I'm the head of Wheel-Trans, and I'm here today to provide an update on the Wheel-Trans transformation program. Next slide, please. After extensive consultation with Wheel-Trans customers, members of the public, community organizations, and other stakeholders, including the Advisory Committee on Accessible Transit, or ACAT, the Wheel-Trans 10-year strategy was established in 2017 in order to make the TTC more accessible, equitable, inclusive, and sustainable for existing and future customers. In compliance with the Integrated Accessibility Standards Regulation, or the IASR, under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, or the AODA, Wheel-Trans service and eligibility criteria were expanded. This, coupled with Toronto's aging population, resulted in significant growth forecasts in trip demand. As part of the 10-year strategy, a new, more sustainable service delivery model was created. The Family of Services, or FOS delivery model, the cornerstone of the strategy, integrates specialized service into the TTC's broader suite of accessible conventional transit services, providing Wheel-Trans customers with greater access, flexibility, and spontaneity of travel. The Wheel-Trans transformation program, the program responsible for implementing this strategy, is in its 7th year and is comprised of 9 major initiatives. Updates on these initiatives will be provided in this presentation. Next slide, please. The 9 initiatives are Family of Services, re-registration, access hubs, travel training, reservation scheduling and dispatch software upgrades, contact center review, Wheel-Trans policy updates, community bus enhancements, and fleet replacement. Next slide, please. The cornerstone of the Wheel-Trans transformation program is the FOS business model, which was enabled by the AODA mandated eligibility changes, which went into effect on January 1st, 2017. FOS provides Wheel-Trans customers with the option of using accessible conventional transit service, so buses, streetcars, or subways, for all or part of their trips. Over the last year, we continue to expand the FOS network, bringing the total to 81 FOS routes, 508 vehicle transfer stops, and 4,500 non-vehicle transfer or walking stops to the network. We produce an educational customer-facing video on FOS travel as an additional tool to assist customers and demonstrate the accessibility of the conventional system. A total of 602,881 FOS trips were completed by customers in 2022. This marks a significant increase from just under 350,000 FOS rides completed in 2021. Remaining surface route stops and stations that connect to where customers live or travel will be added to the FOS network, which is already spread evenly across the city. Our goal is to reach 100 FOS routes and 600 vehicle transfer stops within the next 3 years. We will launch an FOS pilot later this summer, where up to 50 volunteer customers will travel for several weeks using FOS at least twice per week. This will allow for valuable data collection, customer feedback, and lessons learned, so we're more prepared to support higher volumes of FOS trips in the coming years. In the future, trips will be automatically scheduled according to a customer's specific eligibility and conditions. This is referred to as conditional trip matching. Family of services travel remains completely voluntary at this time. Next slide, please. Re-registration is the transformation program's second major initiative, and we've heard a little bit about it already. And just to recap, under the AODA, specialized transportation service providers are required to categorize persons with disabilities for eligibility based on 3 categories: conditional, unconditional, and temporary. Providers were to comply with this requirement by January 1st, 2017. On that date, Wheel-Trans introduced a new eligibility criteria and application process to comply with the AODA deadline. The eligibility application that was in place prior to 2017 didn't capture the information needed to determine an eligibility category. Wheel-Trans requires all customers to be assessed using the same eligibility criteria. Re-registration, which only applies to customers who applied prior to January 1st, 2017, ensures a fair and equitable approach for all Wheel-Trans customers. A customer with a disability who applies for Wheel-Trans service in 2023 should feel confident that all Wheel-Trans customers, including those who originally applied prior to 2017, are assessed equitably using the same process and criteria and are assigned a category of eligibility. The eligibility process that we have in place today is the result of extensive consultation with external stakeholders and valued members of ACAT. To date, more than 9,000 customers have voluntarily re-registered, and about 1,550 of those 9,000 have re-registered in 2023 so far to date. Efforts continue to be made to engage with the remaining 9,000 or so legacy customers who have yet to re-register in order to be compliant with the AODA mandated eligibility categories. Our legacy customer re-registration targets are for 3,000 customers in 2023, so we're about halfway there, 5,000 customers in 2024, and any remaining customers in 2025. Next slide, please. To support the FOS model, the TTC has implemented a network of access hubs. 16 spacious, well-lit, heated, and completely accessible shelters are located throughout Toronto for seamless travel and transfer between FOS and fixed-route transit, including cross-border travel. This project is now complete, and all 16 of these access hubs are installed and available for use. Next slide, please. The next initiative is travel training. The travel training program provides customers with information about accessibility features on the TTC's conventional system, familiarization with stations and vehicles, and offers one-on-one training to customers with a TTC travel training specialist. As part of the training program, customers also receive a travel training handbook. This program is an important support for customers preparing for FOS travel. 95 customers received travel training last year, bringing the total to 652 customers trained to date under this program. And the travel training program will continue to support Wheel-Trans customers who are interested in learning more about the conventional system. Next slide, please. The Wheel-Trans reservations, scheduling, and dispatch software system is an automated, multimodal trip booking system which is crucial for the success of the new FOS service model, as it enables high volumes of FOS trips to be booked and delivered. The TTC upgraded the previous system using a phased approach between 2018 and 2021. Further enhancement of the system will improve service efficiency, customer experience, and accessibility. Phases 1 to 4 were completed and implemented from December 2019 to November 2021. And now over 80% of trips are booked using the self-booking website, which was introduced as part of this initiative. New features and benefits of this new software system include a Where's My Ride vehicle location feature, vehicle arrival notifications, ability for customers to request an early pickup, scheduling optimization improvements, performance dashboards, and automated trip reassignments. Full implementation of a customer mobile app for iOS and Android users, which provides many of the same functions as a self-booking website on your smartphone, is expected to be launched later this quarter. And the final 4 phases of this initiative, phases 5 to 8, are scheduled to be completed from 2023 to 2026. These phases will enhance the existing software system with additional features, and we will also replace the current end-of-life mobile data terminal and automatic vehicle location system, and replace the current legacy interactive voice response phone system with a modern solution, both through competitive procurement processes. Next slide, please. Our next initiative is the Contact Center Review. A review of the Wheel-Trans Reservation Contact Center identified the need to increase staff and to handle a high volume of calls and to improve performance. To address this challenge, a Wheel-Trans Reservations overflow contract was established with TELUS. This contract provides support to Wheel-Trans reservationists with the goal of reducing wait times and call abandonment rates. On November 22nd, 2020, we successfully implemented this new overflow call transfer solution. Wheel-Trans has realized significant cost benefits by transitioning to this nimble model, saving $1.8 million since its inception. This is based on a comparison between maintaining the Wheel-Trans approved 2020 headcount and in-house model versus actual overflow model spending from 2020 to 2022. To further illustrate the cost benefits using the in-house model, Wheel-Trans identified additional headcount, labor, and benefits costs which would have been required to achieve improved level of service, notably an average wait time and abandonment rate. By implementing the overflow model, Wheel-Trans has achieved those performance goals, and there's been a cost avoidance of $4.6 million to date, meaning it would have cost $4.6 million more to achieve the same level of service using the old in-house model. We will continue to strengthen the partnership with the vendor over the coming years to leverage more improvement in performance. And significant improvements in performance have already been realized as a result of the overflow solution. In 2019, the year prior to the contract, the average call wait time for our customers was over 20 minutes, and the percentage of abandoned calls was 35%. We have seen consistent improvement over the past few years, and year to date, we've achieved an average wait time of 1.4 minutes and a call abandonment rate of 7.8%. Next slide, please. Diverting customer trips to an enhanced and expanded community bus service was identified as an important element of the transformation program. This service, operated by Wheel-Trans buses, has stops strategically placed at neighborhood hotspots and lends itself well to use by seniors and persons with disabilities. The TTC Board approved service modifications to the 400 Lawrence Manor, the 402 Parkdale, 404 East York, and 405 Etobicoke community bus routes, and they were implemented in September of 21. We have seen increased service reliability through enhanced schedules with the added option of flag service in between stops, where customers can wave down vehicles at any point along the route. A community bus marketing campaign has just been launched with the goal of increasing ridership. This includes advertising at community centers and subway stations and on TTC buses and social media. Further community bus route changes will be evaluated in future years based on the status of Wheel-Trans initiatives such as FOS. Next slide, please. And fleet replacement is another important transformation program initiative. Wheel-Trans has continued diversification of our fleet mix to match new customer profiles, trip patterns, and travel behavior. In addition, there was a concerted effort made to purchase replacement vehicles, which would improve ride comfort and vehicle reliability, while also reducing greenhouse gas emissions and fuel consumption. Currently, Wheel-Trans has 230 newer gasoline-powered 6-meter and 7-meter ProMaster vehicles in service. The remaining 24 diesel-powered friendly vehicles in our fleet will be decommissioned and replaced by the newer ProMaster buses throughout the course of 2023. The greenhouse gas emissions reduction associated with the 6-meter and 7-meter vehicles versus the friendly is 24.8% and 18.5% respectively. As I mentioned, the remaining friendly vehicles will be decommissioned over the coming months, and we will receive a total of 137 7-meter ProMaster vehicles. Furthermore, the 2023 approved Wheel-Trans fleet plan requires the procurement of 52 6-meter Wheel-Trans vehicles for delivery in 2024 and 2025. And these units are scheduled to replace 6-meter vehicles that are reaching their end of their useful life. At the May 2023 board meeting, the TTC Board approved the procurement of these 52 6-meter buses. And lastly, a pilot of 10 electric Wheel-Trans vehicles will start in 2025 as part of our plan to shift toward a fully electric fleet in the future. Next slide, please. The TTC is in its 7th year of the Wheel-Trans 10-year strategy. To date, the strategy has been highly effective in modernizing Wheel-Trans operations, improving the quality of service and customer experience, and minimizing costs due to a growing customer base. Specifically, the contact center overflow model has significantly reduced call wait times and abandoned call rates, as evidenced by the graph shown. I mentioned we averaged about 20.8 minutes in average wait time. Earlier in the year, we were upwards of an hour at some point in 2019. This has improved significantly to 1.4 minutes and 7.8% at abandonment rate year to date. In addition, the contractors provided a cost savings of $1.8 million and a cost avoidance of $4.6 million to date for the TTC. Next slide, please. The new FOS business model that addresses pressures due to a growing customer base has resulted in total cost avoidance of $89.7 million to date by providing Wheel-Trans users the option to use TTC accessible services as part or for all of their trip. The chart on the screen shows the breakdown per year. This is based on the fully conventional trip diversion percentage in green, which is added to the number of FOS trips involving Wheel-Trans vehicles booked through the self-booking website or contact center. Next slide, please. The implementation of re-registration and the FOS model has ensured the TTC remains compliant with revisions to the IASR and the AODA and can provide equity in its transportation offering to customers. Upgrades to software systems has made new tools available to our customers, such as the self-serve registration portal, self-booking website, online chat features, customer email, text, and mobile alerts, and the mobile application. The Wheel-Trans transformation program has significantly improved the Wheel-Trans customer experience. We now offer our customers expanded travel options, freedom and spontaneity of travel through the FOS model. We've improved customers' ability to quickly book trips, even on the same day, and call center wait times are vastly improved. We have made our service more accessible, equitable, inclusive, and sustainable for existing and future generations. Wheel-Trans will continue to consult with customers through the annual TTC Public Forum on Accessible Transit and our annual Wheel-Trans Customer Satisfaction Survey and ACAT in an effort to continue to make improvements which provide the greatest benefit to customers. Next slide, please. Wheel-Trans will deliver further benefits to our customers over the remaining 3.5 years of the 10-year strategy, and these benefits will include the further enhancement of the reservation scheduling and dispatch software system, which will improve service efficiency and customer experience and drive future cost savings. We will launch the Wheel-Trans mobile app later this summer. The replacement of the mobile data terminal and automatic vehicle location system will make real-time data available for operators, which will reduce trip times and improve customer experience. The replacement and modernization of the interactive voice response phone system will better serve customers by providing one central contact number and drive future benefits. And lastly, there will be continued expansion of the FOS network in order to provide customers with more trip options and spontaneity of travel. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Cameron. Yes, Commissioner Osborne.
Oh, thanks, Cameron. I just wanted to ask you, it's my understanding just from other reports that we are not the only jurisdiction to be going through this attempt to migrate as the vehicles permit some people away from the Wheel-Trans or whatever their Wheel-Trans equivalent is onto the conventional system. And I'm wondering if you've had any conversations with any of those other, like all over North America, this is happening, from what I understand, and if we've been able to get some good ideas, because the kind of comments that we're hearing from our deputants are happening all over the place. And I'm wondering if there is any sharing of good ideas, best practices, and so on to help what is very clearly can be a difficult transition.
Through the chair, yes, Commissioner Osborne, you're correct. So it is being employed elsewhere, specifically in York Region. The FOS model has been employed for several years now. So, we have had significant consultation with them and other GTHA partners, as well as other providers across North America, because the ADA has similar type of legislation with this. What the AODA says is that paratransit organizations may deny requests to these conditional customers for door-to-door trips on paratransit vehicles when they have the ability to use the accessible conventional system. So, that word is may. So obviously, we're working, with our stakeholders, with ACAT, in order to ensure that we have everything in place to set customers up the best to use the conventional system when they are able to. But yes, we've learned a lot from York Region. We'll continue to communicate with them. And what we've learned from our U.S. partners is that we're kind of ahead of the game in terms of the scheduling software that we've implemented through the transformation program, and our ability to book these family of services trips. They're actually looking to us to learn more about, how this works, what the technology is behind this, and the different systems that we're using. So, we're leading in the technology phase in that sense to be able to deliver this when you have a large transit organization with several different modes like we do.
Thank you. I believe Commissioner Ainsley has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you explain a bit? So yesterday at the City of Toronto's Executive Committee, and we had a request from the Toronto's Accessibility Advisory Committee, and there's a number of deputants. I don't know if you were there yesterday. So this process, pre-registration, is that something that the provincial government's mandating us to do through AODA? Because there's a number of comments about how some of the deputants found it a very more stringent process than previous.
So through the chair. So yes, the aspect that is mandated is that paratransit organizations must categorize their customers into these three categories: conditional, unconditional, and temporary. They define what those mean then. The issue at play is that paratransit organizations prior to 2017, in their applications, they were not assigning these eligibility categories. Okay, you were a Wheel-Trans customer that was either permanent or temporary. So we didn't have conditional, unconditional. So these individuals are customers who have yet to re-register, who signed up prior to 2017. They don't have one of these eligibility categories. And so AODA mandates that we have to assign them one. So then this is where the re-registration process was born. Through extensive consultation with ACAT and many community partners, including TAC, we came up with what we believed and what our partners believed was the most equitable and fair process in order to have all of our customers equitably assessed. We didn't feel it was equitable to, if you will, grandfather these customers pre-17 in and just give them unconditional eligibility. That wouldn't be equitable to these customers who have signed up since 2017. We also didn't feel we couldn't really just arbitrarily, based on an application that didn't ask the required questions prior to 2017, assign them with an eligibility category. We owed it to them to ask them these questions that the AODA now wants us to ask to define them into a category. We now have to ask those questions to them, right? And so, I know there's a lot of stress involved and anxiety involved in that process, and we totally understand that. We understand it's not an easy process, and we do have a lot of systems and support systems in place to help customers through that process. It's been over 6 years now that we've been asking customers to go ahead and do this, and we have customer service representatives available to help customers. We're sending individualized letters to customers now with details on why they're having to re-register, information on re-registration, how to do it, contact numbers to assist them. We have language line services available to individuals who don't speak English as their first language to help them through that. I think that there are supports there to help customers through it, and we do also acknowledge that, it can be a stressful and anxiety-provoking process, but we do believe it's the fairest and most equitable way to ensure we're compliant with the legislation.
Okay, all right. And then I wanted to ask about the access hubs as well. So there's two in my ward at Bicentenary Hospital at Nielsen and Ellesmere. So an access hub at one point somebody that was most comfortable, I guess, taking Wheel-Trans or ordering Wheel-Trans. So the model is that they would go to the access hub instead and get a full-size TTC bus, or do they get Wheel-Trans from the Access Hub?
So through the chair, you could do both. Really, they are for everyone's use, but they are very beneficial for our Wheel-Trans customers using Family Services Travel to transfer between a Wheel-Trans bus and a conventional vehicle or vice versa. They're well-lit, they're heated shelters with plenty of seating, so they're a comfortable space to be able to wait to transfer between the conventional system and a Wheel-Trans bus. That's the main driver behind the access hubs.
Okay, and then how do you determine the location? So I understand there's a hospital there, so the access hub, and then at the other, so they use the access hub there, but when they get off at point B of their trip, if that's point A and they're going to point B, they're not necessarily going to have an access hub at point B.
Yeah, so through the chair, so we selected them as kind of hotspots, as you said. As well, we selected them to be spaced out evenly throughout the city so that, you know, the city's well covered. We also looked at cross-border transfer locations between our GTHA partners because they're ideal locations to transfer, because sometimes it can take, 20 minutes to have the vehicle connect, and so we wanted somewhere for them to be comfortable while they're connecting. So those were the selections that were made based on that. Yes, it's possible that on the other end, they may not be dropped off at an access hub. It's also very possible that, on the other end, they're, directly dropped off at their destination. But it really just depends on where they are going.
Okay, which just leads to my last question.
Thank you. Well, that was your last question.
That was my last question?
Okay.
I had already started my last question before you.
Go ahead, just.
So in terms of wheelchair access across jurisdictional, so there's a McDonald's at Port Union and the 401, for example, that people will complain to me, they want to get to Pickering or they need to get back from Pickering. The McDonald's is being used as an drop-off and pickup point for our Wheel-Trans, and then somebody, Pickering, comes and picks them up. Is there something we can do better at locations like that for providing a more suitable pickup and drop-off point?
So through the chair, so we've moved away from using private businesses as transfer locations. And with the implementation of the access hubs that allowed us to do that, to provide a better space in order to transfer, we are finding a lot of issues with not only these places being open for the hours, potentially on holidays and stuff, they're closed, but they're busy parking lots. There's people are not connecting with vehicles because there's too many people around. There's traffic issues, all this kind of stuff. So we moved away from all of those locations. So we no longer have any transfer points at private businesses like that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further?
I appreciate your indulgence.
More than my pleasure. You have no idea. Any further, Commissioner?
Actually, I've seen your letters.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. This three new category criteria, is the cost-saving measure or element to it? Is that what's driving this change?
So to the chair, no. I mean, those eligibility categories are defined by AODA. So the AODA states exactly what those eligibility categories mean. So the actual process to have all of our customers defined with an eligibility category, no, that is not cost-saving driven. That is simply mandated, and it's legislation in the AODA.
And will the people be forced to use family services routes, or would they, if they prefer to stay onto the traditional door-to-door Wheel-Trans service?
So through the chair, so Family Services Travel remains completely voluntary at this time. We're going to continue to work with external stakeholders, our partners, the board, to determine an appropriate time to make Family Services Travel mandatory for conditional customers when none of their conditions are present. But at this time, it remains completely voluntary, and we don't have a timeline yet for when it may become mandatory.
So as a follow-up on that one question, you said currently it's voluntary. Currently.
Yes.
So is there plans to make it non-voluntary at some point?
So we are doing everything we can right now to ensure that we are ready to do that. So obviously we've invested heavily in our scheduling software. We've put access hubs out there. We've done a lot of stuff out there in order to support customers traveling via FOS. So it is our intention at some point to make family services travel mandatory. But at this time, there's no date for that, and we want to.
So who's we? Is it the board or is it?
I'm going to jump in here if I could through the chair. That's correct, Commissioner. At this time, I've been very clear with the organization that there is no immediate date should anybody decide in the future, with all the questions and all the issues that you've heard from our customers, that we have 28% of those that are registered with Wheel-Trans today doing it on their own without it being enforced. You know, we have an aspirational goal of getting up to 50%, right? And that was just an aspirational goal, recognizing, having talked to those, all right, with accessible needs on what they thought could be done. And I'd like to give you a little bit more background if I could, because it was just so people know this, it wasn't management here or in York Region that decided to initiate a family of services concept. It was actually persons with accessible needs that made the comment. And I'll just let you know, I was the general manager for a few years in York Region, right, when I was in an accessible committee, and they said, why does it take 5 to 7 days advance notice to book a vehicle to go out, right? And we started talking about, what does it really mean? It's about freedom. It's about spontaneity. It's about opportunity. Why shouldn't someone have a same day as anybody else to get out if there was a family event that you wanted to get, you got invited to? Why 7 days? And then the discussion became, why can't we do short trips, right? There's been a lot of investment in the last 30 years on buses that are accessible, streetcars accessible, and they only became accessible a few years ago, as you're aware. And in the next few years, we'll have all our stations. So it was actually the community that said, why don't we start access in York Region, the Viva bus, that we take you down to Richmond Hill, right? Why would you have an accessible vehicle do that when you have the ability here? And then we started talking about how else we could use technology, right, and scheduling differently. This was a community issue. Now, you've brought it up, you and I had this discussion. Yes, there's a cost avoidance, but it's not about money. It's about that spontaneity and freedom to make sure everybody has, as we all get older, right, that ability to get out, all right, and have that freedom, which everybody deserves. That's what we're looking for. Back in 2017, a lot of this was, I was there in 9 through 14, as you may or may not be aware. But when this was initiated, it was always looking out that EODA changes were happening in 2017. And they were expanding the eligibility to take accessible the paratransit services, right? So more and more people could get on it. So working with them, that's how we started developing this and having those conversations. You know, you heard, there's always been this, when is it going to be mandatory? I'm going to tell you, as I sit in this seat, I won't be recommending to you that it's mandatory, right? When you see 28% of us people taking this on their own, right? This proves it is working, because that's what they asked for. And that's why we invested in public transit with all the money in ADA and AODA over the years. So I just wanted to correct that. You know, there's conversations in the industry out there, but I can assure you, you know, we're not making a decision without coming to the board.
So I'm happy to hear it's a board decision, not a operations decision. And so just to pivot a little bit, the appeals process, you know, I think the deputant earlier, Jean Greenberg, mentioned that, well, one of the things she mentioned was that regarding the appeals process is, you know, they received the notice just days before the deadline. So, I mean, do you think that's reasonable? And so my question as well is that during that appeals process, do people are still able to use the system, you know, the door-to-door service?
So through the chair, so we've heard our customers on that. Because of the amount of re-registrations coming through and the amount of you know, letters that we're sending out for status, you know, there was an issue where instead of, you know, the next day getting your acceptance letter, there was a bit of a delay sometimes, and we acknowledge that. And what we've since done to account for that is we've extended the appeal window to 90 days. Okay, so there's plenty of time to do so, so that, you know, our customers can feel like they have the time to go to the doctor and do whatever they need to do. So that's now 90 days. We've just since done that. And yes, customers, no matter whether or not they were denied service and they're appealing a denial for service, or they're appealing their eligibility, yes, they have access to door-to-door paratransit trips the whole time they're waiting for an appeal.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? No. I think we'll move on to speakers then, and I believe Commissioner Ainsley has a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You know, my pleasure.
I do have a motion. I'd like to move that the TTC Board request staff to explore the implementation of a community bus service in Ward 24, Scarborough Guildwood, and report back of the TTC's annual service plan review. And I'm asking for this. I have, this was planned out for me a number of years ago by TTC staff. They actually planned out a route for me. I have a lot of demand for it in my ward. Most of the bus routes in my ward, surface routes, go on an east to west direction. I have a lot of seniors that have to walk long distances to get to one of those bus routes, so I'm moving this and hoping it'll be considered within the service plan. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. We can move on to speakers, then we'll vote on it later. Yep. Any other speakers? Go ahead.
I just want to emphasize that, you know, transit needs to be accessible for all. As our population ages, you know, we have to be adjust and be nimble for our aging population. And I know that Vice Chair De Laurentiis mentioned that, you know, even about the audio of in the trains, and, you know, enunciating and making sure that, you know, everybody is on the same page and respect in that way. But also too, I think too, a lot of the things I see coming through the TTC sometimes is lack of communication or miscommunication. I think there is a disconnect sometimes with management and the public, because I do hear receive a lot of emails and phone calls from my constituents about some of the issues that happen on the TTC. And so, again, I find myself explaining or clarifying things when really the TTC should probably be doing it better, quite frankly. We're doing a lot of great work, right? I know that, and I think too, also too, one thing's that if you can't do something or there's an issue, to say you can't do it, rather than trying to, you know, make it sound polished. I think people too get offended by that, and quite frankly, I do as well. But it's not a perfect system, but we try to do what we can within the means that we have. I just think it's important to just communicate that out to people. I'm not saying you're not doing it, but I think we can do it better. And what else do I have here? Yeah, and again, I mean, through some of the presentations I heard today, you know, you said you've engaged residents and stakeholders and riders. I think that's a good thing. I think we need to continue to do that. It's important. I mean, the service is for them, it's not for us. So again, engaging them is important. And continue to be nimble. So those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other speakers? No. Great. Then can we please post the motion? All those in favor? Carries. Item is amended. Carries. And we'll move on to item number 5, accessibility plan status update.
First speaker on this item is Jennifer Conroy. Jennifer, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The subway is not accessible. It is difficult for persons with disabilities to board. It's been addressed many times, but the gap between the train and the platform is very wide. Falling while in our chairs is a great concern, and if we do fall, heaven forbid, who is there to catch us? Depending on the length and width of a chair, it can be challenging, even scary, to get through the doors of the train. It also depends on whether the client is using a manual or electric chair. Another important factor is how long the doors stay open. Very often, there is only standing room on subway trains, though this can be said of streetcars and regular TTC buses as well. When the vehicles are filled to capacity, as they often are during the mornings and evenings, it can be difficult for people using mobility devices to navigate through the throng and find their seat or a spot to park your chair. This is especially true when summer is in full swing and people are anxious to get out and enjoy the warm weather. Elevators are often out of order, making it difficult to get around, and in most cases we can't make our connecting rides. Because my mobility device is a power chair, I often can't reach the buttons, so I rely on passersby to press them for me. Most people are kind and willing to help, but in this day and age, you need to be vigilant and cautious, so I don't really feel safe being so reliant on others just to use the elevator. Violence on the TTC and in stations is a very deep concern, especially for people with disabilities. When I spoke to this issue before, I was told that these were isolated incidents. But when I read about stabbings of people on board or people getting attacked on the TTC, I once again wonder, how are people with disabilities supposed to protect themselves if something were to happen? Due to my disability, which is spastic cerebral palsy, I have one hand that is severely weakened to the point where I lack control, and I tend to be spastic, leaving only my left hand to defend myself or to dial 911 if I had to. Some people with disabilities don't have any hand control at all, so what would they do? I suppose this is more of a safety concern than accessibility, but safety and accessibility do go hand in hand. It's something I have to think about every day, and sometimes it's frightening. This is an issue we all should think about every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for our speaker? Seeing none, we'll move on to our second speaker.
Next speaker on this item is Adam Cohoon. Adam, please go ahead.
He left me. It's just.
I'm still here, babe.
Okay.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
That's all right. I didn't make my main accessibility point during the last time because I was supposed to run for a meeting, but I was able to get that changed to tomorrow. But anyway, to get back to what we're talking about, in 2017, when the family of services rolled out, Toronto was actually more ahead of the game in not the amount of elevators or the amount of accessibility, but in some of the support that were available in the subway. And we were promised more support. We were promised that there would be a blue contact button in more places, even on trains with the new rocket train. We were promised all these things. The one thing that we are still waiting for, which I know it's gonna be, it will eventually happen, I just don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, is we do need edge platform doors to really make more of the power wheelchair disability community feel more comfortable in taking more rides on conventional transit. There also has to be, for everybody, as Jen said, safety and accessibility to go hand in hand. in some places. They really do. The other thing that's an absolute mess for people, one of the other things that's a problem with the family of services is we are noticing that more people with cognitive, with even mild cognitive or even just bad directions, where that might not be a totally diagnosing other disability, are going to be encouraged to use it. Wayfinding is an absolute mess in most of these stations, and a lot of time has to be put into better wayfinding. I was told when I was on ACAT many years ago, and I was on ACAT, I must declare, from 2007 to about 2013 in 2 different stints, was that some of the wayfinding could not be done because of safety. They were worried about putting out proper maps and changing some of the wayfinding for security in case of terrorist attack. So there were all these little excuses of why the wayfinding could not be fixed. A lot of these problems are not new. Some of the problems have been slightly adjusted. But we've also realized there's a crisis in customer service because there are less actual staff in TTC uniform in some of the places. Sure, you're adding security or whatnot the odd time, but we really do have to, in concert, like I mentioned the bus route idea earlier, we really do have to think of creative, innovative ways of getting more people to use the subway rather than using the stick of forcing people onto FOS rides. We need to make a better carrot. And one last thing that some of these other places have done that's successful that you'll never mention in your report are giving people that use paratransit or were like Wheeltrans or other paratransit users free rides when they use the conventional transit to actually encourage them to do it. And LA's done it quite successfully. End of thought.
Thank you, Adam.
I will take questions.
Any questions for Adam? Councillor Ainsley, go ahead.
Sorry, Adam, I missed the last bit. Did you said other transit agencies that you ride on, are they providing free rides to people with disabilities?
No, not places I've read, but friends in the US, and you can even check a lot of their websites, do offer, if they are paratransit users, but are using the conventional transit, they get free rides for, not using the paratransit, but to actually encourage them to use that actually encourages them to do it. And there's other not like little novel things that are available for them. And other cities are also using more technology to offer a virtual concierge for people that when they are lost or when they start to feel lost, they can use an app and a chat thing on their phone for people to maybe help them figure out where they are going, or or if they have little questions on their trip.
Okay,
So
thank
those
you.
are just some offense.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thanks, Adam. There's a question from
It's a
Councillor
question of
Osborne.
staff that related to what Adam's just mentioned. Is it appropriate for me to ask it now? Am I out of order?
Sorry, are there any other questions for Adam? No, I think we're done with Adam. Thank you so much, Adam. So let's go to questions to staff. Go ahead, Julie.
So I thought Adam raised an interesting point there with the using some carrots to try and get people who might have some barriers, anxiety, and other things. We have travel training. I've always felt the numbers, they seem fine, but I always thought we should have more because I think it's such a great service. So make sure that we aggressively promote that. But I think if we could go in tandem with other incentives like what Adam mentioned, it might be a good way to get people who are anxious to give it a whirl. And I'm wondering if we've considered it, and maybe there would be some other thoughts. Just because I think, Rick, you talked about the freedom that people have, but if I know people who don't have any barriers to transit at all, who are intimidated by it. So if you have those barriers, it's probably enough to say, okay, I would rather not, thank you. So if we can help them want to give it a whirl with the training and maybe some financial incentives, I think it would be something we should look into.
So,
Cameron, do you want to?
yeah, so through the chair, or through the vice chair. So the FOS pilot that I was referring to that we're going to run later this summer, so that is something we are doing. So those customers that volunteer and sign up to travel family of services up to twice a week, they will have free rides. So it is that incentive to try to get them more comfortable using it, and then they can determine whether or not that's something that is appropriate for them. So we'll see how that goes and the uptick in that. But yeah, I think it's a good suggestion and certainly something that we're going to do with this FOS pilot.
Any other questions on this item? Any speakers on this item? Okay, seeing none, do we need to adopt the item? Do we need to move it? Councillor Mathis, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. I think we now move to, because we've accepted the items, so we move to item 12 on the agenda, and Commissioner, okay, hang on a second, I'm on the wrong page here. And you had a question, Commissioner Osborne, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll be quick. I just wondered, this was an instance where I would have thought this would be an attractive proposition, and we had one bidder. And I'm wondering, are we doing something that is suppressing interest from otherwise qualified parties? Because I think obviously it would be a lot better for us if we had multiple companies expressing interest in these and other projects. And I'm just wondering, is it just the nature of this one thing, or are there things that we are doing that it is suppressing the levels of interest?
So through the chair, thank you for that question, Commissioner. I think there are a couple of issues going on here. One, there are limited manufacturers. And then in addition to that, we have a certification of a safety standards certification is called CORE. And so at the moment in the industry, there aren't many manufacturers of that limited group. They're actually CORE certified today. And so we are trying to work with the industry to try to get them to expand that certification. I think there are a couple other manufacturers that are currently trying to assess that. That's becoming common standard beyond just this particular industry. So we have done everything we can from the procurement side of the house to expand how we work with them. And so that's what the report does say about how we modified the negotiated process, because prior to that, there wasn't an opportunity for terms and conditions and specifications to be understood best. So we've opened up the procurement process, but now we also have this issue around CORE certification.
Is there some proxy, some other thing? Like, I don't know what's involved in core certification, but like, is there some other way that we can ensure that we've got responsible contractors who are in, who treat their employees properly and, you know, aren't taking risks and so on? Or is this like the only?
I'll turn that over to Gary Downey.
Yeah, through the chair on this one. Again, CORE goes back 20 years effectively. We started in Alberta. And again, it's actually now recognised as a standard across most provinces for when you get into major construction projects. So what you get when you get a CORE certified construction company or supplier, that you have confidence that they have a safety management system in place. And again, a lot of clients, both in the public sector and the private sector, have adopted the CORE certification as a standard that's required. And again, that's what we followed suit. We've given all the manufacturer, we are actually CORE certified ourselves. We actually achieved CORE certification last year. We were the first public entity that's ever achieved CORE certification, because what we didn't want to do is put onus on our suppliers that we couldn't adopt ourselves. And again, going back a number of years, we accepted if they were CORE registered, not certified, but we gave them a period of time to get certified. And then again, that's when we made the decision in January the 1st, 2022, that all contracts and major contracts would have to be CORE certified. As Josie mentioned, in the escalator manufacturing side, there's the big four effectively. There's TKA, which was known as ThyssenKrupp. Again, there's Kone, Schindler and Otis. Again, we know that both Kone and Otis are currently going through the registration just now to get certified. So hopefully in the very short term that they will have a much more expansive field to bid on our projects going forward.
Okay, thanks.
You're good? Anything else? Any other question? Go ahead, Councillor. Yes, she is. She's
Thank you. Interestingly enough, at Government Management Committee earlier this week, we considered a report on escalators, if I recall correctly. It was talking about a particular escalator and its life cycle cost and the handover from the original installer, some warranty period, some post-work, and then an overall maintenance contract. And I wondered if staff could just tell me about how the life cycle costs of this equipment is figured out, and who does the eventual sort of long-term work for maintenance, and also who does the long-term repairs. Because if I understand the report correctly, this is for the installation of new escalators. But could you just tell me about what happens in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and so on?
Through the chair, I'll take that question. So we maintain our own escalators. We maintain each and every single one of the 333 escalators. We do anything and everything associated from weekly tests to monthly tests. We do annual tests, and then we also do our own overhauls. And so the intention is to try, and what is the difference between an overhaul and a replacement? It almost is exactly the same thing, except on a replacement front, you actually replace the truss. On an overhaul, you do not replace the truss. And sometimes you don't necessarily have to replace the truss. It just depends on the environment and what so forth. So one thing we're pretty proud of is the fact that we do maintain all our escalators, and we actually do the overhauls on them. But sometimes the truss goes, and some of the ones we're looking at these days are 50, 60 years, and that goes way beyond what you expect the truss to last. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. And just generally speaking, though, how do we wade through the business decisions of that program? And I look to staff's advice. We look after it ourselves. But when do we make a decision as to whether or not we would just go to the manufacturer and say, okay, so you're the creator, the engineer of this device. You've got the parts. Is it better for you to look after it for a period of time? We must have a decision-making tree to figure out what the cheapest option is. So how does that work? Or do we just assume that we're going to look after it once, I guess, the warranty's over?
No, through the chair, I think one of the things that is definitely on our analysis at this point is to have a really deeper look. I mean, this is traditionally something that we've done, and I think we've done really well, but we've also are seriously looking at the business case and the analysis to actually see if there is a cheaper, I shouldn't say cheaper, sorry, a more effective option for us. We are the largest owners of escalators in Canada at 333, so that would be an awful big amount of work, but that definitely is, Councillor, something that we're actively working at through our Business Transformation Office.
Thank you.
Wow, that's a lot of escalators. And any other questions? Any speakers? Okay, I need, I think, a motion to adopt the item. May I have a mover, please? Commissioner Osborne, you started this, so we'll have you move. All in favor? Okay, we're done. So I'm going to, I think we're moving now into closed session. And do I read the? Okay, you're going to post the resolution. We would now be moving into a closed session, which means that all members of the public joining in person today kindly leave the room. We'll return to the public session and the live broadcast at the end of this session. Thank you. Over to you, Chris Ann.
We're back in public session, and I just want to, we had certain actions taken in camera. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Adjournment. That concludes the business of this meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? Item carries, and we adjourn. Thank you. Goodbye.